Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to council for August the 11th, 2026. There is full agenda, so let's get right at it. Need a motion to approve the agenda, moved by Booker, seconded by Way. Any additions to the agenda? Council Booker.
Under discussion, speeding in Brownsville, I've had complaints.
Any others? Seeing none, as amended, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Any declaration of interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none, move right on to the minutes of the July 14th, 2026 meeting, moved by Pickard, seconded by Way. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Business rising from the July 14th meeting, CL 26. Anything, Denny, you wanted to comment on?
Nothing to add, happy to answer questions.
Any questions on this report? Seeing none, mover for the report, moved by Gillis, second by Buckner. The council received report CL 2026, business driving minutes on July 14th, 2026 as information. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those carried. First delegation, Mohammed has thing add there. Come on up to the table, please. So at the last council meeting, the council turned down a request for an exemption to the bylaw committee on birds. And you'd like to have an opportunity to appeal. So go ahead, please.
So my name is Madam Mohammed. We raised pigeons from 42 Penny Avenue, and we recently got complaints about our pigeons being, I guess, too noisy as well as having droppings. I just want to start off and say that the pigeons don't really make noise, nor do we. We are really never home. My dad works 6 days a week, and this is the only hobby that he does partake in. We recently had a red tag pin a couple years ago. So the only hobby he currently really can take part of it is this. And so this being the only thing, because it's not really lifting weights or anything like that, since he can't do anything that's really heavy lifting, this is the one thing that he is able to do, as well as able to, take time and spend time with me as well as other people in our family that enjoy this sport. We keep our pigeons disciplined. They only really land on our roof, especially after the first 2 weeks of being settled. So they shouldn't really be a problem for anyone else. Of course, I get it that sometimes other birds can poop and cause problems. But additionally, I want to say that there was a part of time in May when the other people that I believe I brought up last meeting as well, they had their high flyers come in and they released them in our area. I guess a lot of people might have assumed that those were our pigeons, but they were not. They had nothing to do with our birds. We don't even know those people. They probably caused a lot of problems with creating droppings on people's roofs. They most likely did sit on the roofs and cause issues, but our pigeons do not do that. Our pigeons go straight on our roof, go right inside their house, and that is it. No issues for anyone else. And then as well as the noise part of it, we're not home again, so we really don't make any noise like whistling or calling them in or anything. As well as the pigeons don't really make noise. They coo and everything, but inside the coop you really can't hear them. I mean, I'm from my house, I can't even hear them myself, so for anyone else to hear them, I don't know if that's a possibility. I also wanted to say that these pigeons will come back, and so why we're asking for until October is because no one else is taking our pigeons right now. We were able to get rid of 7 of them already, so we're down to only about 20. But in order for us to downgrade, we do have someone that will be able to take them in October, except not right now, just because with young birds, people just don't want them. They're just not going to be useful to anyone because they've already been trained and settled on our property. And so no one else is really able to use them except for breeding, which takes part after October. So if we can have that time until October, that would be great, just so that we can find a proper home for them, just like any other pet. That's all we're asking for. I don't want to take up much time.
Just the only thing, this is my habit, like 6 days we working. I left house 8:30, 8:45. So we going Brantford, at the store, we open that. 9 o'clock we closing the store, 10 o'clock we back home. So for a Friday, Saturday, we closing at 10 o'clock, we coming home at 11 o'clock. This is my habit, like I had from my childhood back home. I like it a lot. That's the reason I have everywhere I went, like I was from Afghanistan. I went to India because my life was in danger. That's why I left, I ran away. In India, I had patients. Then I came to Canada. So I didn't know starting till I saw and I kept some in kitchenette. Then I moved from kitchen and here I had some. That's the only thing I like it a lot. Even a few of them because this is the only day I off on this Sunday. Just for 1 hour. Only once I take them out outside. Because everybody else, if they have a cat or a dog, they take them out also for once or twice a day. So I enjoy they come outside, they take the fresh air and they go again. Because we have to leave and go work. When I see them, I enjoy the life. That's the only thing I can say. But the rest, whatever you said, I go with that one. And I request a lots of people to take because they need a good house. So I live anywhere I can live it. In Toronto, coming back. Once I destroy the house, they will set in everybody's house. Then I cannot do anything on that time.
Okay.
That's the only thing. I love it a lot. I just came to say, if a few of them allow, I'm allowed. If it's possible, if not, then it's okay. But whatever you guys said, I will do that. It's only one person I talked with him. He's in a Scarborough, I don't know him. He got my bed, to see the band, he called me. He said, is this yours? I said, yes. He said, can I bring? I said, no, keep it. I told him that if you need more, I can give it to you. They said, I need it on October. I promised that, because when I got the letter, I said, really, I don't have choice. So I told him that I'm gonna bring those one for you, because they need it in October, not now. They raise them, they're busy with their birds. And they said, if it's possible, you can bring it, so in October, I said, this is the only thing I said. Whatever you think, we will do that. Yeah, but the Indian people, they bring their birds on May for 3 days. They leave the same area. Hopefully next year you will see that. It's not about 10, 15 or hundreds. They leave, they go high fly for 3 days. Nighttime when they come, because they don't know the area, they sit in every rooms. And they have the things, what you call that?
It's like stands where they like lift it up.
They go and take those birds, and the next day they release again. I don't know, whatever is coming late, they are the winner. So those were the birds. These birds I have, wherever you leave, they come, they sit in the coops and they're going inside. They do.
And I mean, we've had them for several years too. We've never had an issue with anyone else either. We've had them for several years. No one has really known, I guess, but it's just this year that's if there is an issue.
Questions from council? We need questions here first. Any questions, Council Pickard?
So as I understand your presentation, you're agreeing that the pigeons would be gone in October,
Correct.
all of them,
Yes,
the end of October or first of October?
I know.
Council, you have your,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you keep these in a coop outside your house then?
Yeah.
In the backyard?
Yeah.
Okay, and have you kept them there over the winter as well, or? You do?
Perfectly safe on it.
Okay, when you have livestock, you inevitably have mortalities as well. What are you doing with your mortalities in these birds?
Really, we do try to like bury them and whatnot, just because that is what we prefer to do with any animal, of course, we bury them. And then, yeah, it's really. But we also really haven't had many mortalities. Of course, during the winter, they don't die, they're all inside, so they don't have heart attacks or anything. And again, if they do have heart attacks, then of course, they get taken by them, but we don't have really had mortalities in ours, thankfully. We keep them very safe. We have a limited amount ourselves, so they don't get issues with ventilation, they don't have issues with getting too sick by, for example, too much droppings. We clean the coops every week, so there's no issue for them then. We keep them fed, the drinkers are clean every day, water or food is fed every single day fresh. So we don't have issues with mortality, again, if we do prefer to do it that way, but other than that, we've never really had issues like that.
And so the coop that you have them in, is it totally enclosed then?
It is, yes.
Okay, other questions, Councilor Webb?
Yeah, through the mayor. So if you were to get rid of them at the end of October, is the coop and everything gonna be dismantled and removed as well?
Well, the coop we can also reuse as a shed. Just because if we take off the part where it just has the parts where they go in from, it can be reused as a shed. Originally, the purpose was to use as a shed as well. We can always just re-thing it and use that as a shed once again.
So how big is the shed then?
Just.
10 by 6 or 10 by 12,
Okay,
12 by 4 something.
okay.
Any other questions? So. I guess the only question I had was, again, are they, from the presentation, I understand they're in the shed cage. 6 days a week?
No, but we do release them every day. They are released every day in the morning, so they have a scheduled time that they get released in the mornings and then they're done. And that's what every other racer does as well, that's how everyone does it. They're released once a day and then they go back away. If we were of course able to let them free every day for longer periods of time, we would, but of course we don't want that issue where they go on everyone's roof as well. So we would prefer to release them for their schedule, like 1 to 2 hours of fly or whenever they want to go inside, and then that's when inside there.
Okay, all right, thanks for that, Kirby. I don't have any other questions then. So the question is council prepared to reconsider if they do need a motion to reconsider? Councilor Yadmo.
Just comment, Mr. Mayor, as they said in the presentation, this really doesn't amount to anything different than folks taking their dogs or their cats out once a day for exercise or twice a day, whatever. In addition, it is very similar situation to a lot of the backyard blocks that we've approved over the past 2 or 3 years. Now I've spoken out repeatedly against backyard blocks. This seems to be a bit of a different situation and they are totally enclosed. I would be okay with moving the exemption until October for sure.
So, do I take that as a motion to reconsider?
Yeah.
Do you have a seconder? Seconded by Booker. Any discussion on the motion to reconsider the decision, then we'll come back to the decision. So this is whether we can actually talk about the decision we've already made or make any changes to it. So, you got the motion to reconsider, any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. All right, so now, the motion that you're going to present now, was removed the last motion, the new motion is?
I would move that we allow the proponents to keep the pigeons on their property until the end of October.
2026,
Correct.
October 31st, 2026, is that the?
Correct.
Okay, does that sound reasonable to you? Just, we don't, it's something that's not gonna be workable, so. Do you have a seconder for your motion? Seconded by Buchner. Any discussion on this? This is an exemption to the bylaw, allowing the proper wording in terms of the bylaw. Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Go ahead, Councilor Yurka.
At the risk of contradicting myself, I would almost suggest that I would be okay with them keeping up to 6 birds on their property past October. It's in an enclosed coop, which we have required from all our other backyard blocks. It's a hobby, it's a pastime. I would not have a problem if they wanted to keep up to 6 of them in that coop on a permanent basis.
So that's a comment, it's not part of the motion, which is fine. Okay, Councilor Pickard, you're next.
Yeah, I just mentioned to Councilor Gibbon that these birds are loose, whereas the other dogs would be living with their housed. So I see a little difference there as far as the language is concerned. So I'm not sure I can support changing the motion, although you are not.
So that's not the motion on the floor, the motion on the floor is, are we allowing exemption until October 31st? Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Right, so you keep the birds till October 31st, and sometime after that, sometime before that, they need to be removed, and if you have any complaints, the bylaw enforcement officer will be around.
Awesome.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, have a nice day. Next issue, Megan and we're gonna come up to the table for the Eagle Plan update. So we hosted, vision sort of portion in Mount Elgin. Some of us were there. I'm not sure who was, but, appreciate you doing that. So this is kind of an update from there or, more general broader update?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an opportunity for this council to do a similar type thing. So, yeah, good morning, Mayor, members of the council. We're here to provide an overview of the project to develop a new county official plan. And specifically to talk about establishing a community vision that will develop or guide the development of the policies for the new plan. So then after the presentation, we would appreciate members of council sharing their thoughts and ideas with respect to a vision for a new official plan. So we're looking for input from this group. So, oh, don't have any slides yet. Sorry. See that.
You are.
Yeah, you can just skip to the first real slide. So before we discuss the new official plan, we wanted to just provide a quick overview of the context within which local land use planning occurs. So Ontario uses a policy-led system where the overall provincial interests are articulated in the planning act. And then the act also enables municipalities to use land use planning controls and tools like official plans, zoning bylaws, minor variance and zoning amendment processes, and community improvement programs. The province also issues a provincial planning statement or PPS. And all municipal planning decisions must be consistent with the policies in that document. So the PPS represents the minimum standards for municipal planning policies. And in some cases, municipalities can go beyond these standards where they don't conflict with the rest of the policies in the PPS. So then the municipal official plan builds on the PPS to reflect local interests in the local official plan policies. In Oxford, we have one plan that functions as the official plan for the county and all 8 area municipalities. And the official plan provides the detailed policies which are implemented by the zoning bylaw. Slide. So what is an official plan? The official plan is the main land use planning document which guides where and how growth should occur, how land is used, how development is coordinated with the provision of infrastructure and public services. And then it also helps us articulate and set up processes for protecting things that are important to the community like farmland, nature, water, and cultural heritage. The plan is a long document, contains policies about many different subjects, as well as maps, which together outline various land use designations, requirements, and processes. And then these policies are put into action by the local zoning bylaws, which permit specific land uses in identified areas, subject to various development standards, which we're probably aware of, such as minimum yard depths, minimum number of parking spaces, and maximum stories. So why are we developing a new official plan now? The current official plan was approved in 1995 and has been reviewed and updated since that time. But we haven't done a comprehensive review of the entire document. The plan has effectively guided growth and helped navigate significant changes in population and employment for several decades. But we're now anticipating that Oxford could grow to a population of more than 200,000 over the next 20 to 30 years, including more getting up to more than 11,000 people in Southwest Oxford. So that means that we need a plan that can help us accommodate and manage this growth. There has also been continual changes from the province in provincial legislation and policy, particularly in the last 5 years, and we need that to be all reflected in Next slide, please. So in terms of the project timeline, we're in the first phase of the project, which involves the broad community engagement to confirm and understand what's important to the community in Oxford and develop an overall vision for the plan. We're also currently initiating some of the larger background studies for completion in mid-2027. Some of these studies will be undertaken by consultants. They will each have their own engagement program to get feedback on specific issues. Some of those examples are intensification, housing, and commercial and industrial uses. So the recommendations and feedback received through background studies will translate into draft official plan policies for review and comment by area municipalities. And ultimately, this will end up in a new draft official plan going to county council to consider for adoption. And if county council adopts those draft policies, they would be submitted to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for final approval, because they have the approval authority. We anticipate this project will be completed over the course of the next 3 years. So approximately the end of 2028, beginning of 2029. And I will turn it over to Hannah to explain more about the engagement approach.
Thank you. All right, so this slide is kind of a handy illustration of what our goal is for community engagement. So this is a longer range project, so engagement is critical. And the intention is to have it occur throughout the project using a range of methods to collect feedback that becomes more focused as we progress through the project timeline. In terms of consultation, so far we've been holding meetings with staff that will continue as the project proceeds. We've created a public Speak Up Oxford website. We've launched an online survey, which is still open until the end of August. And we've hosted 4 in-person workshops with the community. And thank you to members of council and staff who did get a chance to visit those workshops. We love seeing you there. In terms of notices to let people know how this is happening. So we've done, again, a range of methods. We've been using emails, using newspaper ads, radio ads, social media. Again, thank you to staff who've been helping us circulate that notice on social media and releases on the county website. And then in the future, where applicable, notices will be released in accordance with the Planning Act requirements. So again, this overall intent is to have feedback filter and focus as the project progresses. And the key thing to understand is that there's going to be multiple opportunities for yourselves in the community to review information and offer feedback as we create more documents. Next slide, please. So we keep saying this word visioning. So what is visioning? I like to describe it as a process that involves asking the community to help define an overarching objective or strategy for an official plan. So vision is used to establish guiding principles and priorities within the text of that policy document. And in the future, decisions would therefore recognize those principles in order to support aspects of that shared vision. Next slide, please. So this slide here is an example of how some key concepts were communicated to the community at those 4 in-person workshops during the vision sessions. So it shows some guiding questions that we use to encourage discussion during the workshops. And perhaps at the end of the presentation, we might return to this page and perhaps they may inspire some suggestions or comments from members of council. Next slide, please. So this slide is another way that we've kind of conceptualized objectives for Oxford County over the long term. And it asks people to consider how planning affects different topics or themes. So it's important to understand these are not exhaustive. So if you think of an idea that's not listed, great. And they're also not mutually exclusive. So what we find is often concepts intersect and affect one another. So to just pick a random example, if someone was, for example, passionate about community structure or movement, their vision for growth might be to speak towards making neighborhoods more walkable or improving active transportation and protecting trails. That's just one example. So all of these are examples of how a member might provide feedback. And again, if you're inspired by these guiding ideas or themes, we welcome your thoughts into the presentation. Next slide, please. what are we doing with your feedback? So all the comments today will be combined with feedback received through the online community survey on Speak Up Oxford and the in-person visioning workshops, any input from other area municipal councils, and any ideas that emerge during discussions with interest groups. We'll take all of that information and create a report that synthesizes what we heard the vision to be, which will be used then to establish the key objectives within the official plan. That's it for our presentation. If we can move to the next slide, please. We want to thank you for all your time. I'll take this moment while the QR code is up. That will take you directly to the project page. We also have that website URL on there, just for ease of access if anybody is interested in checking it out. And yeah, maybe we could slide back to slide 9, I think it is, for the areas of focus. Or 8, yeah, that's great. And we can leave that up if that is helpful to members of council in terms of providing some thoughts or feedback. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just looking at the time. We're running late, so the question would be, can the two of you stay for a few minutes? And then come back to this, because I think this is way too important to kind of rush. I'm asking if you can, in which case, sorry, for the rest of you, you're gonna wait too. But if you could, I think it's an important issue, and I'd like to see council have a more fulsome discussion than we've got right now, so. Can I ask you to wait for half an hour or something? Okay, right, thanks very much, and we'll be back to this. Is there any initial questions before we? Because I think council should in fact invest some time and energy into putting some visioning ideas forward. Okay. You don't mind, I think Megan and Emily, I think, are next, so. The other Megan, sorry.
Emily and I were supposed to burn the rest of the week. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but this is any less important than you want. At least aim to be somewhere close to being on time, so go ahead, please.
So hello, we did submit a slide deck.
Yes.
That can be pulled up on the screen, but I'll get started while that goes up. So my name is Emily Portock and I'm a member of the Oxford Age Friendly Committee, here today with Megan as the chair of the committee. We will share the local strategy that the Age Friendly Committee has just recently developed, and we look forward to exploring how we can work together to support this important. On the next slide, you'll see a list of our current steering committee partners, and you'll see that many partners across the county have been involved with shaping this strategy. We plan to continue to explore partnership and collaboration opportunities over the next year as we take this strategy out into the community. Next slide. Oxford has an aging population and our rates of adults 65 and over is continuing to grow. We're seeing increased representations of seniors when looking locally at who is living with low income. We also have some of the highest falls rates in the province when we look at emergency department visits and admissions to hospital. Age-friendly communities work to improve the needs of this population, but they also support the strengths that the life experience and knowledge this population brings as a benefit to their community.
So, yeah, next slide, thanks. To develop the strategy, we started with a community needs assessment. So this included data from 402 survey responses. We did 10 focus groups and 8 one-on-one interviews. We analyzed this with support from Southwestern Public Health, and the results were themed into 5 main domain areas. Transportation emerged as a significant barrier across many of the domain areas, with a specific mention for lack of options in our more rural areas. Access to healthcare was also a challenge, with wait times, inconsistent home care, and staffing shortages mentioned as major concerns. Housing options were found to be limited, unaffordable, and often inaccessible. Social participation was limited by technology barriers, transportation, cost, mobility issues, and lack of awareness. And outdoor spaces, it was mentioned that they needed improved maintenance, better accessibility, and safer pedestrian infrastructure. Next slide, please. So these next slides include the recommendations for the 5 focus areas for the strategy. So transportation did emerge as a significant barrier, and specifically for participation in community life and healthcare access. Only 25.3% of our survey respondents agreed that community transportation services were available to them. And 28% of respondents disagreed that they can get to their appointments, shopping destinations, and social events, which increased to 37% when we add in the somewhat disagree option, meaning that over 1/3 of our adults 50+ in Oxford County cannot easily get to where they need to go. So yeah, the 4 recommendations here we're hoping to focus on for transportation. Next slide, please.
And then this is the recommendations for healthcare. Increasing awareness was seen as a key area that we could focus on to improve, as many respondents stated that they did not know the programs and services that are available to them. Cognitive health and memory clinics also came forward as a local gap. Coordinated access was seen as an opportunity to improve access and navigation, and something that has happened in neighboring areas, but not in Oxford. Sharing our needs assessment and data was also seen as important to support advocacy efforts and local grant opportunities. Next slide covers social inclusion and participation. It is important for older adults to feel connected to their community and be able to participate fully. Older adults have many great benefits and values to add to their communities, so our recommendations strive to ensure they're always able to participate. Reducing ageism has many benefits beyond just social benefits. We want to increase awareness and knowledge about the health risks linked to social isolation and loneliness, so people understand that staying socially active is not just a nice to do, but a key part to protect and support their mental and physical health.
So housing is a key enabler for aging in place. Only 24.9% of survey respondents agreed that their community offers smaller or alternative housing options. Caregivers reinforce these concerns, highlighting high retirement home costs and long wait lists for long-term care. Participants also emphasize the value of safe and supportive housing that enables independence and can keep families engaged in care. We want to ensure that our seniors' needs are considered in housing initiatives and promote alternative living options. There's different groups out there like Senior Women Living Together, and there's also Canada Home Share Program, which are just some alternative options that we could also explore along with increasing housing. And next slide, please. So the final domain is outdoor spaces and buildings. And this aligns with many areas that's already kind of in municipal work and existing partnerships. So our needs assessment and strategy can be used to support local grant applications and policy updates, such as the current update of the official plan. Our committee has already shared our needs assessment and work with the Oxford Accessibility Committee, the Trails Committee, the Oxford Active Transportation Committee, and we're working with the built environment staff at Public Health, who is also building relationships with different planners. And we'll continue to explore these partnerships and collaboration opportunities. We just wanted to highlight too that this work was recognized by Minister Raymond Cho with the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility. We were invited to attend the Ontario Age Friendly Community Recognition Ceremony at the Roma Conference, which was back in January. And we were presented this for the county. So this recognition was based on criteria that was established by a panel of experts using information from the Ontario Age Friendly Outreach Program. And our committee demonstrated active involvement in the key steps towards becoming an age friendly community, which is why we received the recognition. Although the work is just beginning, I will say.
So that leads us to our next steps. On the next slide, our committee is currently planning an Agent Well roadshow for each of our 8 municipalities, where we will share resources through vendor tables, have educational speakers, and have food and drinks to provide social opportunities. We've received a grant from United Way Oxford to support paying for resources, transportation, and food for these events for 2026 and early 2027. We have hosted 2 of them already, and we're hosting an event in your municipality in Salford on September 18th at the community center. We would like to invite all council members and staff at the Southwest Oxford Township to attend our event for an opportunity to further connect with local residents. We would also welcome any connections with local groups to help spread the word and any suggestions to encourage local residents to attend. And on our last slide, we would like to ask this council to endorse the Oxford Age-Friendly strategy. We would ask that you share the strategy and needs assessment with staff to be considered where possible when updating municipal policies and strategic plans. It can be used to support grant applications and aligned projects. We're willing to work with and support your staff when feasible and encourage anyone to reach out at any time with questions, thoughts, or ideas. The Age-Friendly Committee thanks this council for the opportunity to make this presentation. We're happy to hear any questions that you might have.
Thanks very much, ladies. Heard most of this, I think, at public health, so good refresher for me. Any questions from council? Councilor Gibbon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. So I think you touched on this in the last part of your presentation, but these activities all have a cost associated with them. So where are you obtaining your funding from?
So we did get a grant from United Way, to do the Aging Well Roadshow, which is covering all 8 of them. So that's all being paid for. The other initiatives we don't have, we're just working on developing an action plan, so it's sort of an ongoing piece. So we don't have any funding needs right now, but yeah, so it's kind of gonna be project by project as we go.
And or activity to date, so far today has been voluntary.
Sorry?
Activity today has been voluntary, right?
Yeah, all the organizations at the table.
Part of your staff work, but some
Yes.
of it is, so there hasn't been any cost so far. Thank you. Go ahead, Councilor.
Are you familiar with the concept of community wellness hubs?
Yes.
The reason I'm bringing this up is that I attended a workshop at AMO conference in 2024 where they highlighted the Pinedale Community Wellness Hub within Burlington. And that program is designed to work within a senior's residence. So probably more fluid in an urban setting, but I'm just wondering if there are portions of that that might be adapted to fit the rural setting. Where we could use parts of that. And so I would encourage you maybe to look into that. And see what parts of that we could pilfer for ourselves and make it work in Oxford rather than reinventing portions of the wheel that might not have to be reinvented.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's a good suggestion, thanks.
Further?
Yep.
So I went through your strategy, reading through it. And there's a couple of points in there that I had questions about. And my questions start on page 4. Where you talk about systemic inequities that affect people. And so I wonder if you can tell me, the Indigenous older adults, what portion of our senior population identifies as Indigenous here in Ontario?
That's a good question. I could not tell you that off the top of my head.
I don't know for Ontario.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that. I can get back to you. We didn't ask it specifically in our survey either, like how they identified, and so we don't have those numbers locally.
So I did a little bit of research last night and I found out that 1.7 to 2% of Ontario seniors identify as Indigenous. So it's a very small percentage.
Mhm.
And then I did a little further research and I found that there are no fewer than 7 provincial and federal programs that already fund seniors ministries in Ontario. To the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. And so I would suggest that the money is already available for some of that work. But needs to be contributed by band councils or by Indigenous groups. in order to help fund the work that you're doing, because I do think addressing seniors' needs here in the province, especially as our population ages, is very critical work. It's very important. So I commend you for having the foresight to put this committee together. But I would suggest that we have to be careful that we don't focus, or that we focus on the totality of the problem and not see the forest for the trees. The next question I had surrounds the next item on that same page, newcomer, older adults. Again, if we're going to work with these people, I think that's important. But newcomer, older adults, so newcomer seniors, folks that have immigrated here as seniors, have not contributed in any meaningful way to the tax base of this country. And so I would suggest that if they have to rely on family members who have been here longer for resources to help them in their senior years, I don't see that as being a bad thing. I think that the longer somebody has worked and contributed to our social programming here in Canada, they should be able to benefit proportionately from according to their contributions to that. And so I would encourage you to, again, not lose sight of the forest for the individual trees. And then as I was reading through the policy that you've developed here, I was beginning to become uneasy about finding a particular acronym in here, and I did find it tucked away on page 10 on the 6th bullet. Expanding programming grounded in DEI and cultural humility. Now, DEI to me is one of the most misrepresented and one of the most dangerous policies that we can adopt as a municipality. I think it's by definition government sanctioned discrimination. And so my question to you is that if and when funding becomes limited or unavailable, which groups are going to be disproportionately ignored in order to target specific groups that you see as needing more care? I think DEI is an incredibly flawed policy. And I would really, really strongly suggest that you remove it from this policy and replace it with a blind care policy whereby everybody is viewed equally across all sectors, receives equal opportunity for care and resources without compartmentalizing into various groups. Everybody is deserving of care. I'm not arguing that. But when we focus on specific groups, we either intentionally or unintentionally defocus on other groups. And I think we're stronger as a nation, stronger as a society, if we help everybody along and not just focus on individual groups. So I would strongly encourage that the DEI language from this policy be removed and be changed to a blind approach to senior care where everyone is provided the same opportunities and resources regardless of their ability, their skin color, their creed, or their orientation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Wait, any comments on me?
Sure. I don't feel like we can remove it at this point. We've already finalized the survey and or the strategy, so I don't think it's something we can change. But it's noted and I can take those thoughts back to the committee.
Councillor Frederick, you next.
I think my question's been answered, but what I wanted to ask was, implementation. Is your committee going to be, or is there going to be subcommittees? Is there any expectation of local council levels, or is it all up to you, your committee to do?
I think we're looking at our action plan of what we can do. So the Aging Well Roadshows, the increasing awareness of services and programs was a big thing that came out in our needs assessment. And our committee did feel that that was something that we could really take on. We have a lot of different organizations sitting at our table already. We know that having things like the official plan and strategic plans at the municipal level being informed by local needs and data is helpful. So I think that's kind of the purpose of us going out to all the municipalities now, to share the data and strategy so that it can be used as a tool or a resource. So in that state, that's work that would be beyond our committee scope. But we're not here with an expectation that, you know, the municipality takes on these recommendations and implements them. I think this is just another tool and resource that staff can use. that has that local data piece that they know has been informed by the residents that live here.
But a subsequent question through you, Mr. Mayor. It seems to me that, you could use the resources of the senior centers. I see they're members of your committee, but there's so much being done there for seniors. I wonder if there isn't a better tie in there with those groups.
We definitely are using them. They're a key partner and a key active, but we have heard from, there's some local seniors that aren't comfortable going to the senior center. There's some that can't afford to go to the senior center. There's some that don't have transportation to get to the senior center. So those types of things were sort of highlighted, and the senior centers are aware of that, I think. So we are definitely working with them. But we know that that's not, like, there is no perfect answer to solve the needs for everybody. So we know there's multiple different programs and services, different deliveries, different formats that are appropriate to match all the different needs of everybody. So that's sort of the types of things that we're looking at. But yes, I agree. The senior centers are absolutely a key partner and do deliver some really great programs for local seniors.
Other questions? Go ahead, Council Bill.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate your guys' slides here today. It's very interesting that obviously housing comes up on here, and I'm gonna talk about the official plan hopefully a little bit later. I just think that it is interesting that it ties in people what they can't do based on what their finances permit, housing wise. The way that works as a first responder. I've seen instances where people would do things differently if they could, but their housing opportunities sometimes are limited. To know all they can do is stay in a home that they already have, compared to having something else, or the opportunity to moving to a different home that would be more convenient just isn't there. So it is highlighted and something I will think about moving forward.
Thanks.
Councilor.
Thank you. Just wanted to further suggestion, Mr. Mayor, through you. When you talk about transportation, I can see that it is a big challenge, especially in the rural setting. I mean, we saw that with the Tego bus system that ran for 5 years and it is now been discontinued. I think the distances that need to be covered make it timelines ineffective, right? Like a trip to London takes you a full day from Pilsenbury, that doesn't really work in anybody's schedule. I attended a Roma conference a number of years ago where the town of Innisfil presented on the partnership with Uber and how they subsidize Uber rides for pretty much anybody that wanted to use it. And it was so successful that they actually ended up having to double their budget for it because people were using it a while. And so I'm not suggesting that we necessarily need to go down that road, but could we look at potentially subsidizing workforce seniors with a company like Uber or a rideshare type program? Because I think door to service is probably the way to go in the rural setting, rather than trying to set up a busing system where it takes 8 hours to get, half hour down the road.
Yeah, completely agree. I think we have talked to some transportation partners, and exploring those types of programs, I think, is what we would have to do for rural. The other thing that really came out as a strength is our volunteer driver programs that our senior centers and VON already have. So we are looking for ways how we can really support and enhance that, increase volunteer recruitment, increase volunteer recognition and retention. Those are an affordable way that provide door-to-door services for our seniors and are already here and exist. So yeah, those are some opportunities. I think we would like to see how we can support those types of things. We completely agree that we're not asking for rural buses. I don't think a bus program is what is going to meet the needs for people out here. And that some of those alternative options is what we really should probably consider.
Any other questions, Councilor Bill?
Well, just a comment that the ability for housing that will fit their incomes. Maybe we should go and look at we did tour the tiny home community that they have for the homeless in St. Thomas. That would probably fit into that bracket of affordable housing for the seniors, and it would be a community in itself, which would bring a lot of them together, so it would make use of all the other things that you're proposing, work more feasibly.
Any others? Go ahead, Councilor Carter.
Yeah, just something that caught my eye in your report was that first of all, more seniors want to grow old in their, I think that's a well-known fact, more seniors do want to grow old in their homes as long as possible. And there was a statement there, just caught my eye, home care is 40 to 75% less costly than long-term care home. And I'm just curious, when I read it, it wasn't a lot more detail, I'm not asking for that today, but I'd be interested in knowing what is factored into coming up with that economic outcome. Just what's incorporated there and how that's derived, because it is substantial figure in terms of savings, but then again, how's it derived? Just a question out of curiosity.
It came from a United Way report. They did a report on healthcare and costs, so that's the reference for it. I'd have to look into it. Do you want me to send that to you after? Or-
Yeah.
I can do that.
Thank you.
And I can't speak specifically to it, but I do know that the government of Ontario has done a lot of work into it. And they have identified as well, through their healthcare budgets, that it's a lot cheaper to age in place, and they've done substantial studies.
A couple of quick comments for me, around housing, sure. I would, echo Councilor Brooks's comment about maybe we should be building, housing that is actually suitable for seniors. And the example in St. Thomas was a great example. The other thing is, we also reflected on the idea of, we need to culturally change our attitudes about, maybe it's okay for 3 or 4 seniors to live in the same house. Or, that, we have to actually add, a few granny suites or granny flats, to our things. Until, and it's kind of a good news, bad news story, because every one of us actually would like to get a little older. Or almost every one of us. There are a few people that would prefer that this was the end, but most people actually want to get older, and therefore the problem is kind of chronic. And what I would suggest, until, as a society, we choose or decide that we're gonna have a mandatory death date, in other words, you gotta die on your 86th birthday or whatever. Unless we're gonna choose that, which I'm kind of guessing we're not. Then we have a moral responsibility as a community to sort of solve some of the issues that seniors are facing. And some of them you can do on their own, great, but some of them they can't. And I think that as a society, that's gonna be one of our go forwards. People used to not live to be 80 or 90. When I was a kid, if you were 75, you were rolling. Now I gotta tell you, 75 is relatively young. So, the other, last question, and appreciate very much being here. The September 18th, Salford, what time is it?
Yes.
It's gonna be 10 to 2.
10 to 2, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I wasn't sure with the evening, I was gonna suggest that probably day is better than evening.
Yeah, no, it's during the day.
But, okay, all right, thanks very much for being, unless there's any other questions, thanks very much for being. And, we'll, I'm sure staff are working on a recommendation to support the, Age Friendly Society.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. We can, we want to get on to our next meeting, because we're already running very. Okay, I see Sydney there, but she's gonna wait until after we do the zone change. We have a zone change for, Ag Tech. When you're here for the zone change, let's move into a public, I'm moving us into a public meeting, and, we'll get right to it, so. Protest, all right, your name is? Mark Cook. Mark Cook, thanks, Mark. The process is the plan will go through the report, council has an opportunity to ask any questions they want. Then you have an opportunity to make any comments you want, anyone in the public can speak in favor or opposed to it, then council deliberate, make a decision and move on from there, okay? So go ahead, please, Laurel.
Great, thank you, Mayor, members of council, staff, and members of the audience. Thank you, Mark, for being here today. This will be familiar to you. We did discuss this last August. Council did defer it at the August 12th meeting, pending either a revised site plan that complied to the town zone bylaw or confirmation of all the specific provisions for the proposed yard setbacks. So to remind you, the application proposes to rezone a portion of the subject property zone general industrial to permit a 395 square meter accessory dwelling unit in the portion of a new industrial building as a permitted use. The building would also contain a warehouse and truck transportation terminal. So we did hear this last year, as I mentioned. The revised application submitted by the applicant did include requests for some site-specific provisions to reduce the required front yard depth from 15 meters to 5.08 meters, reduce the required rear yard depth from 7.5 meters to 1.5 meters, and reduce the required interior side yard width from 10 meters to 3.0 meters. A noise study to support the proposed reductions to the required yards was also submitted by the applicant. Overall, planning staff are recommending approval of the application. It is consistent with the policies of the provincial planning statement, does maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan, respecting development within rural settlement areas. So the property is on the west side of Culloden Line between Brownsville Road and Hawkins Road in the village of Brownsville. It's approximately 1.2 hectares or 2.95 acres in area. It currently contains a 1,528 square meter industrial building, which is being used for manufacturing and a service shop, and this use and building will be maintained. There will be no manufacturing in the new industrial building. Surrounding uses are agricultural to the north, west, and south. There's a single detached residential and institutional uses to the north and industrial uses to the east and southwest. The current zoning is general industrial zone. The requested zoning is special general industrial zone to accommodate the proposed residential unit in the new industrial building. As I mentioned, as the property abuts a residential use, we did at our consultation meeting clarify that we requested a noise assessment brief to analyze and assess the potential impacts of the proposed new building in proximity to existing residential uses and to identify any required mitigation to ensure that there was no impact on those uses. So the applicant did submit a full noise study. I'd like to note we've requested a brief and they did a full noise study for us. As this was a revised and supplementary application package, the noise study revised application was circulated to county public works staff, township works superintendent, the township fire chief, and the township chief building official for their comments. As I mentioned, because this was a supplementary application. So in terms of staff comments, site plan is required, which we did identify last year as well. So that will include grading, servicing, implementation of the noise study, and other items will be addressed. The chief building official reviewed the revised application and noted that only one residential unit will be permitted in combination with any industrial use. As per the building code, the new structure will require fire separation and sufficient exits and egress for bedrooms. Fire separation along the exterior walls may also be required depending on how close they are to the abutting lot lines. And they will also look at the continuity of fire alarm systems in the residential portion as well as all other parts of the industrial. Due to the significant proposed reduced yard setbacks, township building is also requesting an engineered lot grading plan as part of the site plan process. The township fire chief indicated that a number of items are required to be provided or confirmed through the site plan process. I won't go through those, they're detailed in the report, but thank you to the fire chief for those comments. The work superintendent, Public Works, and Oxford County Public Works did not have any comments at this time, and we did not receive any comments from the public. So in terms of our analysis, we looked at the provincial planning statement. We're satisfied the dwelling unit in a portion of a new non-residential structure is in keeping with the provincial planning statement regarding development of properties in the settlement area and efficiently using land resources and infrastructure. As we mentioned at our August meeting last year, we're also of the opinion that the proposed development will support economic development and competitiveness by expanding the existing business on the site. With respect to compatibility, we're of the opinion that through the implementation of the recommendations of the noise study and consideration of other items through site plans, so compatibility issues, any expected potential negative effects from the new building can be mitigated and minimized. In terms of the official plan, we are satisfied that the proposal is consistent with official plan policies regarding development of properties in settlement areas and within villages. And again, with efficiently using land resources and existing infrastructure. We're of the opinion that the proposed warehouse and transportation terminal are consistent with permitted industrial uses. So these are already permitted uses in the industrial zone. And that the proposed industrial uses can be limited by the zoning bylaw to manage potential issues regarding compatibility. With respect to locational policy and criteria for new industrial uses in the village designation, we're generally satisfied with the setbacks for the proposed new industrial building and compatibility of uses and the surrounding uses and with access onto Peloton. So the noise study, it was dated February 19th, 2026, was prepared by HGC Noise Vibration Acoustics. They provided us with an analysis to assess potential sound emissions from the proposed new industrial building with respect to the surrounding residential use located on the abutting property. The analysis was based on the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks criteria. And they identified that the main noises will be truck maintenance activities, the occasional movement of trucks into the yard and the access route. They used all the worst case possible scenarios to determine potential noise impacts. They did determine that predicted sound emissions may exceed the guideline limits and recommended that to mitigate this, a 41-meter long, 2.5-meter high noise wall in the form of acoustic wood fence is installed. I'd like to note that the warehouse use is proposed for the eastern part of the building, which is closest to the residential use. This will provide an additional buffer between the residential use and the truck transportation terminal, which is proposed for the middle of the new building. And that's where most of the noise is expected to be generated from. We are of the opinion that the noise study does satisfactorily analyze and identify potential impacts and that the mitigation recommendations are supported by staff. In terms of the bylaw, the general industrial zone does not permit an accessory dwelling unit in a non-industrial building. However, we are of the opinion that a site-specific approval to permit a dwelling unit as accessory to a proposed industrial use may be appropriate where the proposed dwelling is occupied by the owner, caretaker, watchman, or other similar person employed on the lot. And as we set out last year, and as the owner and applicant has continued to identify, the property owner has indicated that they will be the occupant of the new accessory dwelling unit. With respect to compatibility of a use with industrial uses, as I mentioned, the proposed building will contain a warehouse use and a truck transportation terminal. And the proposed accessory dwelling will be accessory to the warehouse use. So there will be no manufacturing uses in this proposed new building as we identified last year as well. So with respect to the services for the proposed development, the subject property is connected to municipal water by a 150 millimeter water main. As we mentioned in this report, an engineered lot grading plan, functional servicing report, geotech study, and implementation of the recommendations of the noise study and site plan are required to facilitate the proposal. The site plan approval process will include satisfying several specific design criteria as set out in the bylaw, including but not limited to landscaping, storage areas, location of loading and service areas, traffic and access, parking, barrier-free design and drainage. There may be additional evaluation criteria, including servicing and location of buildings that will also be addressed. Overall, planning staff are of the opinion that the zoning application is consistent with the policies of the provincial planning statement, maintains the intent and purpose of the official plan, respecting development of rural settlement areas. I have attached a draft amended bylaw for your consideration. You'll see that the draft amended bylaw does recommend limits to The proposed uses in the new industrial building to maintain the sizes and uses proposed for the new industrial building, which would ensure that manufacturing does not actually. We have to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Paul. Any questions, clarification? Councilor Perry.
How will you ensure that occupancy will always be the owner of the property? So what if the owner does plan to leave the property and rents it out instead of, well, there's one question. I'll give you sure of that.
Through you, Mayor Mayberry, I don't believe that that is something that can be enforced. I don't believe that that is illegal. That is something that can be legally enforced. It's not an issue that planning can deal with. At this point, we're moving forward in good faith that this is the situation.
Any other questions for clarification? Councilor Perry.
Through you to Laurel. It's supposed to be a hospital transportation hub, warehousing going in and out. Can we, put in an amendment that a certain hours of operation in reference to the houses that are nearby?
Through you, Mayor Mayberry, thank you for your question. So an amendment as to the hours of operation of the truck transportation terminal.
Yeah.
Like the warehousing, that is definitely something staff could consider.
Any other questions for clarification? Councilor.
Mr. Mayor, just in regards to Council Bruegger's comments, if I remember correctly, back a year ago, the proposed truck terminal might be a bit of a misnomer in that I believe the proponent was suggesting a studio for photographing the work that they had done on trucks, rather than being an active terminal for deliveries and shipments. So I don't think the intent was to have an active trucking company working out of that space.
Any other questions for clarification? Being none, Mark, it's your turn. Any comments you want to make?
Been through it all, so
You're happy with the recommendation from
Yes.
planning staff?
yes,
Any questions or concerns on it?
no.
No, okay. Anyone in the public want to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in the public want to speak opposed to the application? Seeing none, there's no one online? Okay, so, now becomes a good public meeting and make a decision. So, we're going out of the public meeting, we've gone out of the public meeting, we need a motion. We've got a second, by the way, and the motion would be,
To approve the zone change?
okay, any discussion? Councilor Yerma.
Just for clarification, I probably should have asked this sooner, but they're reduced. I'm getting a little turned around at the side and the backyard, the front yards, whatever. So the reduced space is just to be able to tuck it into that corner.
Through you, Mayor Mayberry, yes, that's correct. They have worked very hard to try to maximize the space between the lot lines, but also ensure that they can produce a building that would suit their needs. So yes, it's to get it into that corner.
Anything else? All those,
Sorry,
go ahead.
just one further question, and it kind of hinges on the enforceability of the residents. So we understand the intent of the current proponent, but eventually this place will be sold. I mean, eventually who will be done with it? And are we setting ourselves up for any kind of liability issues in allowing this kind of a setup? Should it be rented out to a tenant, for instance? Is there any concerns in that regard? I'm not sure if Laurel can speak to that or.
Through you, Mayor Mayberry, thank you. I don't believe that planning can legislate who habitates in any sort of dwelling unit. I don't believe that's something that can.
And just to clarify, through the circulation process, it wasn't a requirement of township staff or county planning that it necessarily be the owner of the land or the operator of the land, right? Like that's not a condition. That isn't part of the analysis, sort of like a condition for
recommend approval. Is that correct? Yeah, through you, Mayor Barry. Thank you, Julie, for that clarification. Yes, the analysis was based on whether or not a dwelling unit would be considered compatible with a new industrial use. Typically, we would not permit a dwelling unit to be located in conjunction with the manufacturing use. However, in other zones, like the highway commercial zone, we do permit a dwelling unit in that zone. But in this case, because the proposed new industrial uses are non-manufacturing, we considered that it would be acceptable in this case to allow a dwelling unit in conjunction with those uses. So Julie's correct. It was more about the compatibility of uses rather than the intent.
It's, yeah, in your paragraphs here, it says, proposed dwelling is occupied by the owner, caretaker, watchman, or other similar person, so it would be continued with the business operation, not, as a separate dwelling.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, that's carried.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so that, the appeal period is, 20 days, but the only person that can appeal is the applicant, the ministry, or municipality. So I'm very doubtful we're gonna appeal, as long as you don't appeal and the ministry doesn't, we're good to go.
Great, thank you very much.
After 20 days, then you'll be able to get, building permit, I'm assuming, so.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, Mark. Majority running late, and we have two delegations waiting for us. Let's go ahead and do the committee of adjustment. So moving into the committee of adjustment. And, that'll get. The motion to move into committee of adjustment, moved by Gillis, second by Way. Any discussion, all those in favor, opposed, that's carried. We're now into the committee of adjustment. Call the meeting to order, motion to accept the agenda, moved by Gillis, second by Way, all those in favor, opposed, that's carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest, seeing none. Minutes of the last committee, June 2nd, moved by Yitman, second by Luker. Any discussion, questions? All those in favor, opposed, that's carried. And we're down to minor variance application 803, 26S, Envy and John, Van Rokel. So, anyone from there coming, Andrea?
No, I'm just a neighbor.
Oh, okay. Sorry, so same process as before, go ahead, Laura first.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Mayberry, and members of council, staff, and members of the audience. So the relief requested through this minor variance was from section 8.24, number of accessory dwellings and garden suites per lot. We're actually, after we reviewed the application, the correct relief variance is relief from section 8.1 to permit 2 single detached dwellings accessory to a farm. So the applicants have requested this relief to provide a second permanent single detached dwelling to accommodate full-time farm labor associated with the current farming. The property is on the south side of Ebenezer Road between Culloden Line and Durham Line, municipally known as 343672 Ebenezer Road. The property is approximately 56.5 hectares or 139.5 acres in area. They have an approximate frontage of 207 meters on Ebenezer Road. So the property is designated agricultural reserve and zone general agricultural zone or A2. Surrounding land uses are agricultural to the north, south, east, and west. The abutting property on Ebenezer Road, a small property to the west, is zoned institutional, is the Grove Cemetery. So as I mentioned, the applicant is proposing relief to construct a permanent second single detached dwelling to the west of the existing dwelling to accommodate full-time farm help associated with the current farming operation. As part of this application, we asked for a minimum distance separation report to ensure that the new dwelling would be located sufficiently far away from surrounding farming operations. And we requested a justification letter to describe the complexity of their farm operation and to demonstrate the need for housing for full-time labor associated with the farm. So they did submit those 2 items. There is a portion of a wetland located on the northwest corner of the property, and the area also contains a portion of a non-provincially significant wetland feature. So it's regulated by the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority. The Dutton Drain and Dutton Drain Branch C also runs across the center. The application was circulated to a number of public agencies, considered to have an interest in the proposal. The Upper Thames River Conservation Authority did comment that, yes, the property is regulated by the UTRCA due to the presence of the wetland feature. However, as the proposed dwelling is to be located 500 meters or more from the map wetland boundary, they have no objections to the proposal, and a permit is not required for the construction of the dwelling. There are no source water implications under the Clean Water Act. The township of San Jose offered chief building official, work superintendent, county public works, Southwestern Public Health replied, they reviewed the application and do not have any comments or concerns with the proposal. Public notice was provided to property owners on July 13th. At the time that I wrote the report, I had not received any questions or comments from this. As I mentioned, it's the properties in the agricultural reserve, and in the official plan, residential uses, including accommodation for farm labor, may be permitted on an agricultural lot as a use subject to certain requirements and criteria. So these criteria are outlined in the official plan. I've added them to the report. I won't go through all of them, but essentially we want to make sure that agricultural land is protected and preserved. We minimize impacts on agricultural operations. That we permit these new dwellings when they are required for accommodation of full-time labor. So when the farm is large enough and complex enough in scope that they require additional employment and housing. We want to make sure that any new dwellings are located to minimize impacts on surrounding agricultural land. So we want to cluster these new residential units. And we want to, in the official plan, it also mentions that any new farm dwellings cannot be severed from the farm unit. So the justification letter submitted by the applicant did describe the scale and complexity of the year-round farming dairy and beef farm. We are of the opinion that it provided sufficient justification for an additional permanent dwelling to accommodate essential on-site farm labor beyond the capacity of the existing dwelling. I'd like to note the new dwelling will be near the existing dwelling. They will share vehicular access. If the application is approved, a total of 0.62 hectares or 1.55 acres will be dedicated to residential uses, and that would include the dwellings, necessary infrastructure, amenity space, a driveway, and individual on-site services. So we recommend that a max of 2 acres is taken up by these residential dwellings and services, and they're proposing 1.55 acres, which is less. So we're of the opinion that the proposed location meets the objectives of the official plan. The MDS report did confirm that the proposed second dwelling does meet the MDS requirements. In terms of the zoning bylaw, section 8.1 does specify that only one single detached dwelling can be permitted. And section 8.2 establishes the provisions for land zoned A2. So this property does meet the requirements for an A2 property in terms of its area and its frontage. Section 8.25 does state that any new dwelling must meet MDS, and as I mentioned, the official plan and through their MDS report, they have confirmed that they do meet this requirement. So we're satisfied that requirement is met. I'd like to also note that Dan did review the application and the background information, didn't have any concerns with the proposal. There have not been any comments from the official plan does permit residential uses, including accommodation for farm labor. We are satisfied that the proposed new permanent detached dwelling for farm labor is generally consistent with the official plan, that the requested variance meets the intent of the zoning provisions regarding new residential dwellings on property zoned A2. So it's the opinion of this office that the proposed relief to permit a second permanent detached dwelling for farm labor can be considered minor and desirable for the development of the subject property. We're of the opinion that the scope and complexity of the farming operation do justify a second detached dwelling to accommodate essential on-site farm labor beyond the existing dwelling. We're also of the opinion that the property, as it's an oversized A2 property, it is of sufficient size to accommodate the proposed second detached dwelling and required services. Furthermore, we do not feel that a second permanent dwelling will compromise the ability of the subject lands to provide for adequate drainage, privacy, or amenity space. And we are of the opinion that the proposed location, as illustrated by plate 2 and plate 3, will not negatively impact the primary agricultural area and surrounding land uses, because the new proposed dwelling is clustered with the existing dwelling. So it's the opinion of this office that the request for relief is in keeping with the intent of the official plan and township zoning bylaw should be given favorable consideration, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, Nathan Coxon, from Everest Estate Homes is online. Any comments you want to make on the application?
I want to,
So,
my apologies. I want to thank staff for the recommendation to approve the application. They are very thorough, and we appreciate the recommendation, and we look forward to council support on the recommendation to move forward. Thank you.
okay, thanks, Nathan. Now, anyone in the public want to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in the public want to speak opposed to the application? No, you're just here for see what's happening, so.
Well, no, I wanna learn, because I might build the building in a year, so I kind of want to learn what goes on with this meeting.
Okay, fair enough. All right, back to the committee. Any questions or comments from the committee now? Councilor Brooker.
No, just the comment that they can't be severed. I appreciate that because you could run into problems down the road if it was able to be severed. So, yeah.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Mayberry, thank you for the comment. And yes, the official plan is quite clear with respect to that. And also the, as it would be built now, it would not meet the criteria for a surplus farm dwelling or severance anyway.
Councilor Yilma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you explain that a little bit further? Because if an adjoining or neighboring farm were to purchase this property at some point in the future, would not both of those houses be able to be severed off?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Mayberry, thank you for your question. The ability to sever, farm dwellings from property must meet a certain number of criteria. One of which is that the dwelling would have to be built before 1995, and this is not the case for either dwelling on that property. So they wouldn't meet that criteria.
Good. Well, if you're, one quick question, go ahead.
Actually, I wanted to have a comment. I have property around 3 sides of Yohan and Yohan and Andreas property. And they will not ever be able to separate that. It's so clustered, they will not ever be able to sever that off where it is. I can't see how they would manage that ever.
Well, the rules say they can't anyway, so. So, okay, anything further on this? Any further questions? Councilor Gillis.
Just a comment, I think this details like the need for full-time labor on farms and the complexities of it, and the fact that instead of having come forward for temporary housing, coming forward for permanent housing is probably a good idea for complexity and the length of time the farm will exist in supporting this application.
Good. Now the committee has to make a decision. Councilor Becker,
I say we approve it.
approve the minor variance, seconded by Councilor Gillis. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. No appeal period. 1 day from there. Okay, so 20-day appeal period, and then after that, they can get their building permit. Sorry. They can went for a building permit, they're just not gonna get it, so for 20 days, all right. Need a motion then to rise from committee of adjustment. And take Boomer and Way, all those in favor, opposed, that's great. Okay, I guess suggest we jump back then to the plannings, shouldn't be too bad, but. If you don't mind, we'll go back to the planning. Sure. And, if you two want to come back up, Megan, and then, we'll get, questions or comments on visioning for the official plan. So, Councilor, you go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if I think back over the last 2 or 3 years, we've adopted a number of new policies, a new agricultural policy, agricultural use policy, also a new policy around the ARUs and that sort of thing. How does that all fit into this new official plan? Is that going to be a cut and paste because we've already done that work, or how does that all work?
That's a good question. Yeah, we're not, all the stuff that we've done more recently and, we're not gonna follow all that out unless there's issues. We will just, move that over. There may be some restructuring required because, the province is actually dictating content of official plans now and schedules. So we may have to do some restructuring, to keep what we already have, but that's the intent, is not to revisit all those things we've worked hard on recently.
Other questions and then comments on where you see vision or what your vision is. Councilor Webb.
Yeah, see, we have a comment question. So currently in Oxford County, the growth areas are the 3 urbans, correct? Those are Woodstock and Yorkville.
Well, for the minute, it'd be all the service settlement areas are kind of.
But the only rural growth right now basically is Mount Elgin subdivision. And a lot of growth in Chelmsford. And I haven't been through some of these other villages in the area that have much growth compared to Mount Elgin and Chelmsford, is that right?
Well, I mean, I guess I won't go through village by village, but some of the other service villages have vacant land. Or and a draft plan approved areas. Like Ambro has quite a bit of vacant land within their settlement boundary. Drumbo.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a few examples.
Okay.
Yeah, it's significant. In fact, I would suggest that Southwest Oxford is probably one of the smaller areas with potential growth. So,
Okay, you know that.
so ideas around vision, because in fact, that's what Anna and Megan would actually like to hear about. So go ahead, Councilor. Go ahead.
It's just one comment, like you're trying to protect agricultural land. And yet I keep getting rumblings that a lot of our neighboring large communities are looking to annex a lot more land. And how are we gonna do that when it's such a conflicting stuff going on? And then even though we put it in our official plan, it can be overruled by the upper tier at any time. It seems like it's almost a frustrating exercise to try to put together this plan.
Well, for the, I mean, when we look at settlement area boundary expansions, we do look at the impact to agriculture, so try to pick the lower quality lands and where there's less impact of livestock, existing livestock operations, those kinds of things. But you're right, it's kind of a futile task in some ways, because you want the land for one use, and that's, we're dictated by the province to accommodate growth. To plan for a minimum of 20 years of growth.
So since Councilor Buckner started that, in my mind, the obvious answer is a more density and intensification in currently filled up areas. And not to make a long story short, but I'll try to. Many years ago, in another country, I observed a whole city block being bulldozed out of the way to build 24-story apartment buildings. That's what the, in Beijing. And to me, from a one story, I'll say this politely, what is here as shacks, to a 24-story apartment building, would be my idea of, pretty severe intensification. And, on the head of the population. Seems to me that we need, maybe not to go quite that far, but it does seem to me that, intensification or density targets in all new development. And, Schloss and Ingersoll talked about density targets in the new, or at least the land, the last boundary adjustment. And, so far, plans from Ingersoll are greater than what we had set, or what we asked for. And I see that as a positive thing, and so I think, in my mind, if we want to preserve farmland, then we've got to use and utilize any available land. And from your point, Megan, about it's, you look for poor quality land, well, that's a tough job in Oxford. There's not a lot of poor quality land. So I would push that as, from my vision, is, thank you very much, but at some point, this is the wall of the city and it goes no further. Having said that, next visioning thing would be, as farms expand and become, and to quite frankly, to the minor variance that we just talked about, as they become more complex, to use Councillor Gillis's words, and more integrated and expanding in the services they want to provide. And some farms that isn't just dairy and beef or whatever, they may in fact have some kind of processing, or they may have various other services that they're providing to neighbors. Then we want to make sure that we protect those opportunities, but we're also, if I want to, if I need a huge shop so that I can do a custom operation, and I realize this is going to be ag, but then I want to make sure that those kind of ag business services that are directly related to agriculture are, and we moved a long way. I'm just saying, I would want us to encourage that continued idea that agriculture is going to change over the next 20 years. And as it has over the last one. And so we've got to be prepared, because we're looking out 20 or 30 years. We better be prepared for what are the challenges and what are the opportunities that agriculture is going to face. And we can do amendments as we go. It would be helpful if we can sort of say, where do we see it going now, and kind of be out in front of them. So, anyways, I talked too long. Councillor, I think you were next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My comments kind of are in tandem with yours and with Councillor Boothner. I guess one of my main goals is to preserve farmland to the best of our ability. Particularly when we're looking at large tracts that might be taken up either for residential or for industrial growth. I think we need to move somehow in the province to a system whereby we identify the land as per its capability of producing. And so that we take the least productive land out of circulation if we're going to develop anywhere. And that may mean that we don't develop too much further in Oxford County, but maybe we redirect some of that growth in other areas where ground is not as conducive to growth of crops or supporting livestock operations. In our own instance here in Southwest Oxford, town of Mount Elgin's built on a heavy clay hill, so land that's less desirable. I think there's still some room to be able to develop some more areas on that clay hill, but once you get down into the lower lying areas around the village, that's some pretty good farmland down there. Once you get north of the village down past the fire hall, there's some pretty good ground there. And so I think we need to protect as much of that as we can while allowing growth on some of the marginal areas. If I look at Tillsonburg, on the northeast or northwest side of Tillsonburg, there's a lot of sand ground there that probably could be developed at a less cost to agriculture than, for instance, some of the land further to the north, getting into the Ostrander area. So I would like to see us focus our growth on areas that are less productive, less quality land, and I think you've already touched on that. And at the same time, we still need to be able to develop our villages to a certain degree. And so I'm not opposed to being able to nibble at the edges of our villages a little bit in order to allow for various housing type projects where we can encourage local labor to be able to live in close proximity to the farms that they need to work on, or the industries that they need to work in, be that in one of our 3 urban settings or on local farms, that sort of thing. And then in terms of, forget where you had it here. Infrastructure servicing and movement, active transportation. I've been to Europe and also even down in Warwick Township, I believe it's Warwick, where they have separated bike lanes on some of their major highways. In around Watford and so on. And I really like that model, and I understand that it's a very expensive way to build. But it provides a level of safety that you can't get by just widening out your paved surface of the road and adding a bike lane off to the side of traffic. And so I'm not sure if we can achieve that at any point in the future. There are distances here between villages are also much greater than what is the case in Europe. So we can't really recreate that, but I really do think that's an opportunity for growth in the county as well as is to work on that active transportation side of things.
Other comments? Councilor Gillis from next.
One. So along with the comment that was mentioned about density, I think that that's something that we need to continue to move forward. I think as a rural municipality, we have limits, but we seem to be always kind of pushing that a little bit further all the time. But I think our bigger counterparts in the urban area have to push that number higher yet, and should be held to a higher density number than what we are at. And should be able to move that further ahead, especially if they want to justify asking for parcels of land for expansion in the future. I think that obviously with services in the bigger urban areas, it makes sense for larger either apartment buildings or buildings like that. And the common theme on housing or your single detached homes, but I think we have to come up with more of a mix of housing than just 2,000 square foot detached homes. I think it has to be diverse. I think we heard a presentation this morning about seniors and being able to accommodate their needs. Possibly, smaller footprint area, whether it be apartment or a smaller home in general, or like a community facility of that size to make that work. I think whether that be in an urban center or in a village setting, I think something like that could work. Moving forward, I think that we need to continue working with our transportation, as the previous counselor said. I think that someday adding to Beach Hill Road to having those bike lanes between Woodstock and Ingersoll, that's a good passageway for cycling would be a plan in the future. And just keep moving forward. I think we just have to realize that what we're doing now, we need to continue to add to it and not be afraid to kind of push that envelope a little bit.
Councilor Booker, you're next.
Interesting thing is, I think down the road, we're growing all these cities, we're growing the villages. The water is going to be a big problem. I just finished reading about the problems they're having in Wilmot Township, where Waterloo, Wellington, or Kitchener are draining the aquifer, and then the outlying farms are running out of water for livestock, for irrigation and everything else. It's going to be a problem down the road, so that's all got to be part of it, integrated into how we grow them, where the infrastructure is coming from, where the supplies are coming from. It's just something that's got to be part of the matrix.
Other comments? So I think, I'm gonna have, for me, official plan is actually looking at what is going to be the either evolution or desired evolution of the community. Right? We continuously evolve whether we want to or not. I've discovered that we kind of evolving towards old age rather rapidly, actually. And whether it's want to or not, very frankly. And I used to think I was going to be really good at being old, and now I'm kind of doting that. But anyways, the reason I'm bringing that up is that for me, the official plan is about that evolution and where are we going and what is the desired state. And so, and setting, sort of trying to set kind of the goalpost or the vision for where want to go, so. This kind of builds on a couple of comments already made, but, one is around the evolution of society as we change. As we have people that today, apparently want to raise pigeons. Where, 20 years ago, we probably didn't have anybody other than keeping pigeons in barn and calling themselves a pigeon king, right? Like, that's a change that, we've seen. And that's part of the cultural. But I think there's also, around housing and things like that, the encouragement of multi-generational. And the Amish have, demonstrated that, forever in our community, where they have a number of generations living in one house, or they have a house and they build a second house attached to it, some expansion, what I was saying. But, they expand the house and the next generation gets to live there. And I think, those kind of culturally evolving. And as our culture changes, then sort of our goals and objectives. And if you look at other places in the world, multi-generational living is the standard, not the exception. Here is, mom and dad can hardly wait to get the kids out the door and you never want to see them come back. Grandkids are fine, kids not. So I think it's one of those things where we're going to change. And quite frankly, I think we're gonna have to, because I think the economics of the next 20 to 30 years are gonna be very different than the economics of the last 20 to 30 years. And the necessity, and even now, you hear people say they just can't afford a house. They can hardly afford rent, or a lot of people saying they can't afford rent. And so I think we have to be prepared for those kind of changing things, and the solutions to them are going to be fairly varied. Like tiny homes is not the only solution, but some form of communal living might be. And I can't give you a good example, but I can imagine an example where people actually do share a lot more homes, apartments, whatever, and maybe even unrelated people are sort of starting to say, you know, I can afford this much, but I can't afford that much. And sharing a kitchen or whatever might have to be something that we do in the future. So I would encourage us to think that way. How is society going to evolve? And how do we match those needs? And seems to me housing is always first, and then recognizing the reality of resources, whether that's agricultural land or, as Councilor Booker just raised the issue around water. How are we going to recognize that maybe there's, I hate to go back to 1960, but limits to growth, and that maybe we can't have many people living in Woodstock. So there's nowhere close to 1 million now, but it doesn't mean that there used to be only a few 100,000 people living in Toronto. Now, you guys don't remember the one. And as I say, I think at some point we have to recognize that there may be a maximum number, and quite frankly, the example of Kitchener-Waterloo is a good example where maybe they've got more people than they've got resources there, until they start pumping water out of the lake. And when we all start pumping water out of those lakes, maybe we've created another problem. But anyways, other get me started and I'll shut up. Sorry, Councilor Yzma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's been a few comments around housing density, and I think I agree. We need to see especially the 3 urbans here in Oxford County, increase the density in order to preserve farmland to the best of our ability. At the same time, we have to remember that doesn't come without a cost, right? Anytime you pack living beings into a tighter space, there's going to be friction. There's going to be, more associated costs, whether that's in infrastructure, whether that's in law enforcement, by law enforcement, all that sort of thing. Because the tighter you pack people in, the more they're going to get into each other's hair as well. So that also has to be addressed as part of the picture.
No different than chickens or pigs. The increase of density too much, you're asking for problems. So I totally agree with that. The other comment I was going to make, was around active participation and I think walkable cities trails, outdoor exercise sort of things are good for the mental and social health for people. And quite frankly, that and a certain percentage of social housing in every development, I mean, every, like, five houses or more, they're not that social development, become mandatory. You wanna build a new subdivision, sorry, 10% or 15% or whatever, have to be affordable, units. You wanna build a new apartment, too bad. You wanna build a new subdivision, show us your walking trails. And in fact, we haven't done it yet, doesn't mean we shouldn't have, and the best time to start with, then, yet, today, but. I would encourage that kind of thinking in the official plan. Any other comments? Councilor Cloud.
Just a few thoughts in terms of density. There was some discussion around that, and when you when you think about a locality, and I'm thinking about something my 27-year-old and 26-year-old daughter told me, recent graduate university, he's just learning life and all that kind of stuff, but she says, when you create more density, for example, in a community like Mount Alvin, whether you go out or up, those people gotta get somewhere. And so then you gotta get into road widening or more roads. So whether you're extrapolating for what's the word I'm looking for, taking land, build a house on it. So maybe you increase density, but you still got a large number of people. Now you gotta build more roads. Now you gotta build more travel infrastructure. And then you have to start getting into annexing lands for that purpose, which I think can be even more problematic than. So those are some of the things that I think about a little bit. I think the road infrastructure really needs to be looked at. We gotta work with MTO in terms of Highway 19, that's getting very bad. And even some of our secondary roads. The degree of traffic volume, I've lived out on my road for 10 years. And I cannot believe the amount of additional traffic. I have a trucking company at the end of my street now. Agricultural traffic's increasing on there. And so we gotta think about that. That has to be part of the solution. And I think about bike paths, and we talk about building bike paths along roadways. Maybe think outside the box. Why can't a bike path from, say, Woodstock to Beachville be through the countryside? Probably more easing to people, probably safer. Not sure what the construction costs would be to build that, but maybe it doesn't have to be as elaborate as building a bike path alongside a paved road. It can be highly used, and so just some thoughts there. And the last thing I would say is I agree with comments about preserving farmland. Absolutely. I sometimes worry in a big sense, not worried, but I do believe that the agricultural community has to be part of the solution. As it relates to building and finding ways to provide more housing in this country. It's sad to think that by my age, by my daughter's age, I already had a house. And they're way off that. It's just a mentality that they've almost given up. And many young people, and I can help my kids, but they talk about their friends. And it's a problem. It's a big problem. And I think agriculture needs to be part of that solution. And it can be about being very strategic and saying, here's where we think things can go. But agriculture needs to be part of the solution. So anyways, just some thoughts there.
Any other comments, thoughts? That help at all making our point?
Well,
Hopefully we didn't get you more confused.
and I guess just to mention, aside from the larger official plan process, we have the secondary plan to discuss some of this stuff through and the background studies include an urban structure study, which is kind of aiming at deciding where intensification is most appropriate, how it's going to be connected with services and transportation, those kinds of things. So, yeah, we'll be discussing this further.
Good. Thank you for being here and thank you for waiting. You have an appointment, you kind of try and keep it, although I sometimes feel like more of a doctor's office than anything around here. Show up on time and we'll get you when we get you. But I'm saying that because Sydney's next.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much. Look forward to the next batch. So. Okay, Sydney, you're next. Sorry for the delay.
That's all right. Much to discuss. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me back. As I'm sure a lot of you are aware at this point, our regular curator manager, Stephanie Radu, is on maternity leave this year. So I've resumed my position as interim curator manager. And we've hired some additional staff for our summer season. So this year we're joined by our interim assistant curator, Kaylee Shaw, education and public program coordinator, Lily Levinger, and seasonal program staff, Julianne Tremblay, Jillian Dubé, and Juliana Mattis. So I'll start by saying that we're now halfway through our peak summer activity season. And so far, we've recorded over 1,300 visitors joining us on the grounds and in our buildings this year so far. So we're very grateful to our groundskeeper, Jeff Sivier, and to the Township of Southwest Oxford for their work to ensure the safety of our grounds, particularly the recent removal of an unsafe tree on our west lawn by the township. So thank you very much for the coordination of that. All right, so one major project that's been undertaken this year is our strategic plan. So the museum board and staff have completed a 2026 to 2030 strategic plan. And that comes as the result of a number of community engagement surveys that were conducted at the end of 2025 and into 2026. And so that 5-year plan will guide the major goals of the operations at the museum for the next 5 years. And those community engagement surveys, I will just note, some of the results of those were incredibly telling and support those initiatives as we've outlined them in the plan. But 94% of respondents to those surveys identified preservation as their #1 priority, which is astounding. Additionally, local support and research assistance were our other top 2 responses from those folks. And so it's that type of data that really informs the way that we build those plans, of course, as you well know. So one of the goals of the strategic plan sees us focus in on our collection management updates. So updating our collections management policy, which is 10+ years old, and completing an ethical deaccession process to ensure that we have capacity within our current space and our soon to be growing spaces to care for those artifacts as they're coming in from our communities. We've also seen rapid growth in our program and event calendars since we had an assistant curator join our staff full-time in 2023. And so focusing in on those as well to ensure that we're scaling our operations and our training and our volunteer programs in accordance with that growth that we're seeing from the public. And then, of course, the completion of our Barn 1 renovation project according to the ISIP grant by March 31st of 2028 as a major capital project that will see multiple areas of our operations impacted. That was identified as well as one of the top priorities of the strategic plan. All right, so far in 2026, as I mentioned, we've seen over 1,300 visitors to our site, with programs and events continuing to attract both local residents and visitors from outside the county. Our first 2 car shows of the season were unfortunately rained out, but the July show kicked things off with over 120 cars registered, 350 visitors, and over $1,500 raised through all of the activities on site. Our Hands-on Heritage baseball making workshop has seen incredible success and has run 6 times this year, with our largest group being 40 high school students from the Brantford area joining us on their senior class trip. So we were able to facilitate that for them. As well, our Pulleys and Gears grade 3-4 education program has thus far reached 176 students through January to June, and there are more bookings looking to the fall there. Community events have brought significant numbers onto the museum grounds as well, with the Beachville Parks and Rec Easter egg hunt attracting over 350 people. And our speaker series that runs January through June has attracted a cumulative 146 in-person attendees and almost 150 views online of the recorded presentations. We also reach folks outside the museum through outreach programming. So this year so far, staff and volunteers have brought exhibits to over 7 outreach events. So that's, community initiatives, the Oxford Local History Day, Swax Township Fair, and many others. And cumulatively, those instances have reported over 400 visitor interactions, which is a fantastic number that we've seen so far. Summer camp has also been quite successful this year. So far, over 630 of our 860 slots are filled and registrations continue to roll in. These numbers demonstrate that the museum is not simply maintaining our existing audiences, but we continue to see that growth that we've been, on that trajectory for through the last 3 years. In collections, the museum so far this year has received 23 offers of donation, and those offers encompass over 350 individual objects and artifacts, potential artifacts that are connected to the Mount Elgin Methodist Church. There are employee bulletins from Canada Cement, there's Beachville Softball Club memorabilia, and local school report cards. As well as a number of other family histories, domestic histories, and agricultural histories that continue to come through our doors. So those are currently under assessment, being researched, and rationale reports being created to determine how they'll be accessioned or acquired moving forward. And the completion of the barn number 1 renovation project, I'm aware that council has a staff report being presented as the results of the tender project. So I won't go into too much detail at this stage, but that has been well underway with that remaining a focus of our board. So those are the major updates that I have. Just a summary of my report, but I'm happy to take any questions from council.
Thanks very much, Cindy. Again, apologize for being late. Questions, comments from council? We'll let council go.
Well, while everybody else is gathering their thoughts, thank you, Sydney, for all you're doing at the museum. I know that it's a very busy place. There's always lots going on there in the community, not just on the sunny days, but other days as well. So I always appreciate everything that's going on there, and the report just shows that you're very involved in the community and outside the community, the school programs and other people from other municipalities come and visit and stop in. Definitely show the growth that we've seen at the museum in the last few years.
Any comments? We doing okay budget wise?
Yes, that's the
Why
question.
be surprised that I'm talking to George or Ben, making sure that. That's coming into your wages, if it doesn't. The thing is, I didn't mention Friday night. How is ticket sales for the barbecue, or do you know?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ticket sales for the barbecue are going very well. We still do have a few available. If members of council or staff would like to join us, you're more than welcome to. Tickets are available online through the museum's website or by calling the museum office, and also in person through Councillor Gillis.
Oh, okay, that was just a plug for anybody's watching on TV as well. Make sure you get out the barbecue because it's always a great meal. So, anything else from council? Seeing none, thanks very much, and we'll see you Friday night.
Yes, well, thank you.
Okay. I think now we're down to the bylaw exemption request from Brady Hall. So, first report. Anything you want to raise in that?
Right, council, nothing to add to the report, that pretty similar, consistent with my plans in the past. Brady was not able to be here today, but any questions, council, I'm going to answer them.
Good. Any questions for the report? Seeing none, we need a motion then to the recommendation, so moved by Gilbert, seconded by Wade. Council Filter, about the proceeding report, see how my son's coming down. Noise bylaw extension request received from Lady Hall information for the town bar outside in conjunction with section 3.3. The township's noise bylaw number 4921 for a wedding scheduled to take place on Saturday, September 26, 2026 from 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. located at 292138 Golden Line. And further, the council provide direction to staff notifying enforcement staff and just. Any discussion? None, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. You want to take a 5-minute break? 5-minute break. That's it. Back to the staff report.
Yeah.
Daniel's here, so building report, Daniel, anything you want to add for July?
No, not really. Permits come in and slow down a little bit, but other than that, it's kind of that time of the year with summer kind of winding down a little bit, but, no, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, any questions for Daniel? Councilor Becker.
I don't have a question on the building and a permit. Obviously, things are going really well, much better than we anticipated. I do have a question about demolition permits. You do demolition permits.
Yeah.
And I know, what kind of follow-up do you have with individuals once they're approved for a demolition permit? Do you ever go out to see if they actually demolish the structure? So is there any follow-up with that, or do people get demolition permits and then decide not to demolish the whole building?
No, we always go out, for, as long as they call for final inspection, if they don't call, we usually, well, it gets to the point that it's stale, then we end up reaching out to them, but yeah, we go out and make sure it's cleaned up in a safely manner, pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Ask a secondary question to you. Are they obligated to demolish if they get a permit? Or can they withdraw the demolition permit?
They can withdraw. But like I said, if it becomes the point where it's stale and it's been sitting for a while, then we inquire to them, and if at that point they change their mind or whatever, then at that point it's been withdrawn or rejected, or we take it from there, kind of thing, so.
So they can withdraw.
They can withdraw.
Good, thank you.
Anything else? Councilor Webb.
Yeah, just regarding demolition permits. So when they come in for a demolition permit, like for a residential house, they get all the paperwork they have to fill out and send to MPAC to get those taxes stuff that brought, that's their responsibility.
Yes, yeah.
Section
357.
357, okay.
Yeah.
Does that seem to be an issue with someone that, Brett, I had a resident call me quite a few years ago now that he built a new house and he's still paying taxes on a house that he tore down. Well, I'm to find out, never sent in his 357. Right, so
Yeah.
people that Toronto or MPAC, to their knowledge, there's still a house sitting there.
Mhm.
So is that an issue? That seemed to be something that.
We leave
I
it up to
really
the
need to-
resident, but,
Let them be aware. that
Yeah.
that's their responsibility, not the township's.
yeah,
Yeah, because it seems to be.
no, we provide the form to
Yeah,
people
that's what I thought.
oftentimes,
Okay.
but, yeah.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Just, to Councilor Wade's comment, if somebody wants to pay taxes on a house that's no longer there and they can't use. I'm struggling to understand why I would be terribly worried about it. Yeah. It's up to them. The fact that, we've now, exceeded budget on, income. I don't think, we want to encourage Daniel to, work any less hard, but, if he could double the budget, that's fine. I'm actually quite surprised, because I'm surprised about the amount of building that's happening in, because when you talk to people, they seem to be sensing that we're in some kind of slowdown, or people seem to be very hesitant. And yet, in Silva Sausage, doesn't seem to be the case, like there's more, I'm not suggesting there's an underlying problem, I'm just saying. There seems to be an optimism that surprises me, Councilor Becker.
Yeah, I've been wondering the same thing. I've been doing a little reading. And the economy is actually doing a little better than we anticipated. It was very bleak when we set that budget, and it's actually rebounded. Something like you say, there's some optimism out there as a result of maybe the Canadian economy, and probably ours as well. It's doing just a little better than we thought.
So hopefully it's not false optimism, but I've been actually quite pleased with what we see. There's a lot more activity than I thought there would. All right, so we need a motion into receive the information moved by Becker, seconded by White. Council President's office, you close ED 10/2026, July 2026, zoning report is information, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's good. Fire services, Q1 and 2 report. Shane, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Council, this report before you is the Q1, Q2 report, just for informational purposes. I will point out that the deputy is here for informational purposes as well. So if you have any tough questions related to the report, I'm sure he's happy.
Chairman, we have.
Yeah, he'd be happy to field them for you, but other than that, not just a standard Q1, Q2 report, and happy to answer any questions council may have.
Okay, any questions from council? Councilor Patrick?
Well, the first thing that I looked at was how well you're doing. I congratulate you on that. The second question though is, how does these results compare to last year at this time?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the council's question, honestly, I don't have that answer in front of me. These are just quarterly reports, so I wouldn't be able to comment on that. What I would suggest is, you'll see the format's a little bit different, and as we kind of navigate our way through the shared leadership program, you may see them morph a little bit more, the quarterly reports. Hopefully they become more quarterly instead of bi-quarterly.
Well, historically, I've been on council a few different counties. I like the old report where it showed us how we were progressing from the last 3 years to see if things are we getting busier or are the types of changes, calls changing? More automotive, less fire, fewer calls. That's the kind of information you can, I guess I'd like those kind of stats. That's just me.
Mayor, to the question. So typically the annual report shows the 5-year history, but by all means, happy to include whatever council would like in these. And again, it is a learning process. So the idea is to provide council the information that they would like in the reports, and I'm happy to do that.
Good. So other questions or comments, Councilor Wade?
Yeah, through the mayor to you, fire chief. You had 12 incidents that were canceled while crews were responding. How do you cancel a 911 call?
Through you, the mayor, to the question, it's sometimes they're canceled on route. We'll get OPP call back, say, hey, you're not required, or EMS cancels. That's quite common.
Oh.
So they can be canceled by OPP and they can be canceled by EMS. But typically, if it's a fire issue, fire is the only one that can't cancel fire, but that's quite common.
Any other questions? But Councilor Claus?
Yes, so just reading the report and getting familiar with some of the information and such, it was reported wage surpluses by each of the fire halls, if I added that up. Was I reading that correctly? And that it was like 31, 13, and 50? Right?
That's mine.
Right, is that your report? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, I'll save that question for later.
Councilor Rivers?
So just a question, are all the halls pretty close up to full strength now, or where are we at?
Through the mayor to the question, I would say there's 2 missing in Mount Elgin. There's maybe 1 missing. There are some people that are there that are off on leave for right now, so we're trying to figure those out, and Beachville is down. So I would say total, we're probably down about 7 to 8 people.
Oh, District Chief from.
Other, I was just gonna, that's kind of where I was going with my question. I imagine the 2 things are tied, so anyways.
Okay, any other questions for Shane? Okay, so Shane, I've got one, it's more of a comment or thought, and I appreciate your reflection on this. Out of the 112 calls in the first 2 quarters, only 12 were fire, so 90% were not fire related. And I've been harping on this for a long time since I'm on my way out, so I'll give them a shot. It's quite frankly what it's we're not actually a fire department anymore. And haven't been for a long time. We're an emergency services department, but in focusing on the 12 fire ones, it seems to me to be less than what I expected. I used to think it was, 20-25% of fires, this is, we're now 10. And so that says to me, like, either it's getting a lot more calls for other stuff, or we're getting fewer calls for fire, and that may be related to fewer buildings to burn, or it may be related to, maybe we're doing a better job of fire prevention. That would be my most hopeful, optimistic sort of view. And I'm not sure how we would measure that, but to me, that if I were sitting in your chair, one of my great goals would be, how do we get fire down to zero, right? Despite the fact that I have those mere gap on about, or not a fire department. So, and how do you fund the fire department if you really aren't doing fire? So, but I'm just curious, any thoughts on where we're going with fire? Are we in fact doing a better job? Which I certainly hope we are. Or is it just a fluke this time that we're down to 10% fires, and don't worry, it'll be up to 30% next time?
It's through the mayor, it's a very thoughtful question, comment. I think there's a number of factors that factor into the calls. There is absolutely code enforcement. Paige is doing a great job, and I know the report talks about the fire prevention efforts, so the code enforcement. There's been better codes and standards built, so buildings are built to better standards now. To your point, I would love to see fires down to zero too. That's my ultimate goal. Having said that, we try to focus on the 3 lines of defense. We look at, public education, so we hope that our education campaigns are working and focused on the targeted risks in the community. We also hope that our enforcement efforts target those risks as well. And then last but not least, that third line of defense is, the response. So when we get there, do we get there early enough to actually make an impact and prevent it before it becomes, totally devastating? So I don't know if that answers your question, but quite frankly, I think that we're doing everything we can, and it's, moving in the right direction. But I would say anecdotally, everywhere I've worked, fire's been that 15%, it is trending downward. That's the reality in the fire service. So
that's kind of a two-edged sword, right? Like if we have fewer and fewer fires, there could be an inclination to say, well, we don't need to invest as much in fire training or fire equipment or whatever, because we have so few, and 90% of the time they're doing something else. Doesn't change, in my mind, one iota, the danger or potential danger that we're asking people to face the day they go to fire. So it's one of those things where you can kind of say, well, I can understand budget wise, kind of leaning, saying we don't need to invest as much, but the danger is still, in my mind, is still the same. And so it's one of those things where you want the public to understand, if we've got one fire, we still need people trained for it. And the fact that we have 12 is actually a good news story, but yeah, be careful, or not only 10%, and 10% of the budget can be for fire, and the rest can be for something else. But I just don't think that's true. I think we want to be careful of the messaging. And this also, in my mind, to your earlier comment about education and enforcement, if they cost us a bit of money, this may show that they make us some money too. So, sorry, you wanted to comment.
Yeah, I guess just through the mayor, the comment relative to, fewer fires, the challenge with the fewer fires is they're low frequency, high risk events. So therefore the training has to be higher because they're going to fewer and fewer fires, especially structured fires. So there is a trade-off to your point. So that's the challenge that we're facing in the fire service. It's maintaining everybody's training to a competent level to actually mitigate the low frequency, high risk incidents and do it safely. So that is the challenge.
It comes to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when you look at this report, and if this is indeed a trend towards, let fire more auto, that sort of begs the question, do you start to retool how you equip the fire department, right? Does a rescue van become more important or equal in importance to a frontline pumper? in order to carry those types of rescue vehicles and that sort of thing. At the same time, we're seeing new technologies where risks are actually increasing to the public. There was a story on CTV News just 2 days ago about lithium ion batteries and the amount of fires that they're starting to cause. Through improper charging, cheap components being used to build them, some, off-brand names and that sort of thing. And so your incidence of fire could very easily go up because as these technologies are adapted and implemented in more homes, more businesses, more whatever, that risk is going to increase as well.
Oh, okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, need a motion then to see for information, moved by Brookner, second by Yigma. Result, council comes from self-adoption procedural for fire at the 2026-004 fire services, 2026 Q1 and Q2 report as information. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. So, clerk's report 28, lane dock.
Through the American Council, I don't have much to add to the report, the information is all in there, the one thing I would highlight. Is just that based on the number of numbers that have indicated they are not seeking the election, that it is expected that Township Council will be in a restricted position. As I'm not really sure of their election.
So what you're saying is you want to do anything you've got there 10 days to do it now.
But today.
You did a special council meeting. Any discussion on this report? I think it's pretty clear that we're going to land up, so need a motion to see this information moved by Dillis, second by Wade, so council circle charter for 2026. Restricted acts after nomination day, then there period for information. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's great. I would say though that people on council could actually prevent this if some of them would put their name forward and fill out their nomination papers, but I won't say that about Public Works, comes sort of way in record. Public Works, building roof.
Thank you, Deputy 7 brings forward the proposal for the roof replacement at the Public Works shop. This will be for the smaller side, to the southern side of the shop, so the original side of the shop. That membrane roof has reached its service life and is scheduled for replacement. This just brings forward the 10 results for that, and we're gonna work to Ned Law roof.
Any questions on this? Councilor,
60 grand for half a roof.
Yeah, it's for the membrane side, so it's a membrane roof, can't be steel because the slope is so small on it, it's so low, so it has to be membrane. I kind of thought the same thing when we got prices, but that's what they say.
So how old is this roof?
Pre me, I've been here for 23 years, it was on before then.
Councilor Dillis.
Mr. Mayor, Public Works, it said it come in within budget, what was the original budget?
I have to look to work for that.
45.
Almost.
45,000.
Or over budget.
Yeah.
Significantly.
I thought it was 60,000.
Sorry, somebody else had a question. Councilor Craig.
Do we know the contractor is selected?
We have not used them before, I'm the new contractor.
Have you no opportunities to research,
Just in speaking with them when they were here, they provided the best quote, it seemed like they knew exactly what we were doing, they were most knowledgeable at the time.
Daniel, any comments from you on the roof? You're the building, chief building official, you're going to be responsible for the
I haven't looked at it too much, so I don't.
Budget was 65,000. Okay, any further questions on this? Then we need a motion to approve the offer or tender. Moved by, seconded by Wade, so council does talk to approve the quote submitted by Ned Law Roofing. The amount of $60,805 plus the federal HST, the replacement of the roof at Public Works building. Any discussion? Further discussion? And none, all those in favor? Opposed? Gravel crushing timber, somebody wants to work for us, go ahead.
This report brings forth the results of the gravel crushing tender. This is similar to what we've had in the past. We only received one bid. It is from Chittick Construction. They've done all our work in the past. And speaking with some of the other pitter owners around the area, it seems like a pretty competitive price. It's up about 30 cents a ton from last year, and that's directly to do with fuel. Fuel's skyrocketing, so crushing costs are higher. So this report, recommends Chittick to do the job. Open up any questions?
Any questions? Councilor,
Are we gonna get to a point where we're gonna have to have our own equipment?
I hope not. I think it's one of those instances where it's kind of like a gentleman's agreement. Hey, we always look after this pit. You always look after that pit. It's similar to the drag line portion too. We get some guys that don't want to bid because they go, so hey, this is X, this pit to work on. Just so there's enough work to go around. I think if Chittick were ever to get out of it, we would get some other bidders, but I think they know that they're never gonna beat the price, so it's no point in it.
we've used Chittick for quite a while,
We've used them for a long time.
yeah. We've not had any problems, like work-wise, and
No, that crusher that they use basically just dedicated across the street from us at Johnson's and our pit, so it keeps it in the area anyway. There's no moving cost. It's kind of bounces back and forth. I think that's why the price stays down.
okay. Any other questions or comments, Councilor?
I was just looking at this and I thought it was deja vu that I thought we'd already done it before, but apparently it was the sand portion of it.
Same screening.
Yeah.
No, we haven't done that one this year.
Really?
We would have done last year before.
Yeah. That's why you're having fun. Okay, we have a mover recommendation here. Could we have a mover? Moved by Frederick, second by the others, resolved, Council Clerk, for WD 2026 new information is for the council approved the bid of $2.65 per ton plus applicable taxes from CR Chittick Construction, equal to section 22C and section 6 of the township's emergency policy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Second quarter strategic plan, and Julie, please.
So this report provides council with the second quarter update on the township strategic plan and priorities that council identified for the final year of this term of council. There continues to be progress made since the last update that was provided in April, and the report highlights some of that work, including the work done on the new municipal office, child care and library facility, applications that have been completed to support this project. Continued work with executive on broadband expansion within the township, development of the township app. Second township fair that took place in May, the completion of the fire master plan and a few other ongoing strategic initiatives. I'm not going to go through all the individual updates as they are outlined within the report and the attached tracking document. I do want to note that this update is intended to be more of just a reporting exercise, but also a chance for council to provide any comment on the work that's been underway so far this year, ask any questions, provide any additional direction to staff if there are priorities we'd like to see focus on over the next few months as we move through the last few months of this term. I am planning to bring a further high-level report to the new council in December of this year. And then I'm hoping that that will help provide some background information to the new council for a more detailed strategic planning discussion in January. We'll set some direction for that term. We'll look at what we're doing now, and we'll look at what the new council would like to see coming forward in the new term and see what changes need to be made from there. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have, and as mentioned, I welcome any comments or directions that you may have.
Okay, questions or comments from council? Other than it looks like people are busy. Go ahead, Councilor Gillis.
I'm just gonna echo the same comment, Mr. Mayor. I think it's been a good plan that we've been working through, and I think staff has diligently been working on it, and there's always lots underway, and keep working on it, and that's the important jobs.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, kind of a situation where you really can't do much. I mean, this is a report on what we've done. So it isn't a place for council to start saying, well, this is what extra we want with it. So I'm not gonna do that. There's not much. And But I'm actually fairly pleased with, recognizing the amount of work that's done, pleased with county managements and, so you and all the staff do it next year, much appreciated. Anything else? I know we certainly encourage you to bring, an opportunity for the next council to, do some long-term strategic thinking on when we get started. It may take a month or two to kind of feel comfortable to do it. I think it's a good goal. If you want to set goals, but never have to worry about achieving them, I suppose. But anyways, we need a motion then to receive this information. Moved by Toknes, seconded by Clauser, resolved the Council of Township Central documents in report CAO 38, 2026, second quarter strategic plan progress update for information. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Those that's law enforcement. You want to add any?
The Mayor Council, nothing to add, and thank you for questions.
Any questions from council on law enforcement? Councilor Gokner.
Yeah, I received quite a few complaints about one building in Brownsville. It's quite an eyesore, plus the fact there's chickens running all over the place. I was just wondering, how legally, how far can we go at forcing them to clean up and turn around?
Good Mayor, Councilor, my understanding was that we had a complaint on that one, but
We've had 4 or 5 complaints, people are even complaining on Facebook. Julie knows the property, so maybe, Julie, you might make a comment on it.
Sure, I think we should need to be a bit careful talking about this particular matter now here in this setting. I think that I would encourage anybody that does have concerns to submit the complaint through the online or the online form. To make sure that we have it. We are discussing this one, but we should be careful about how much we talk in open session.
Yeah.
So complaining on Facebook is not, I mean, complaining on Facebook is yapping on, that's fine. But if you want to actually register a complaint, then fill out the form and do it properly. So, because as far as I'm concerned, a complaint on Facebook is not a complaint. If somebody upset about something and they're not willing to deal with it, they deal with it by actually registering a complaint and then allowing staff to deal with it. So, and I appreciate the fact that people are concerned about the community and all that. I agree on that. I just think though, we need to be careful that they do it the right way so that staff can actually, or deal with it in the right way. Otherwise, we can't have staff reading Facebook all day long and saying, well, here's something about this, that, or the other. I mean, there's a procedure or protocol for us. We need to follow. Anything else, Councilor Gillis?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just wondering how staff is dealing with some of these delinquent repeat offenders, whether we're starting to take a stiffer approach with them, because there are a few that seem to have problems, and then the problem seems to come back again, possibly again, and how that's moving forward. Because I think that is one of the issues that I think some people are having, is I've been complained before and it just goes back to the way it was. So what's the point of filling out a form?
Councilor, my understanding that we want to take an educational approach by law enforcement activities, but as you'll see in the report, since January, we have done 9 orders. So I think that indicates a bit more of a stricter enforcement method. But we're happy to obviously continue to work with landowners, and if we need to issue an order, then we definitely do so.
Good. Any other questions or comments? So this is one of those cases where I'm not disagreeing at all with Councilor Gillis. I'm just saying, in fairness to staff, sometimes that allows use their judgment. The fact that we have 9 orders, actually, I wouldn't say a good news story, but the least bad news story they have on this, quite frankly. At some point, you do have to say, sorry, clean up the mess. And we're not going to, we're going to do it for you, Councilor Butler.
So just for
my educational purposes, like a complaint can be handled by staff and then an order is when you send out the bylaw officer. What's the difference?
To the mayor, to the councillor, the complaint comes to staff
Yeah,
and all complaints then get forwarded to the bylaw enforcement officer, and then the bylaw enforcement officer will go out, investigate, determine what the best approach is, and then usually just kind of inform staff as to what's going on the property. But usually pictures are taken of the property and then we can review as a team type thing. And then for ones that are significantly in compliance with bylaw provisions, we would issue an order.
yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
One comment for council's information when it comes to some of our property related issues, particularly the ones that have been ongoing. And maybe we need to have a broader discussion, just like Denny said, about our enforcement approach, but also so council's aware. A lot of times, we're trying to balance some compliance with the order versus further legal action, which means taking them to court, hiring legal counsel, and likely incurring thousands of dollars. And there's been a few times where I would say that we've been at that point where, okay, they have complied for the most part with what we've asked them to do. It may not be perfect, but there is some improvement, and then we let it go, and then we are kind of end up in the same situation again, where it deteriorates, and then we need to issue another order, and then it improves, and then it deteriorates, and we go through that cycle. And kind of, if we're gonna take a much stronger approach and really deal with it to maybe what our standards would be fully, there will be significant costs associated. So if that's a discussion that council would like to have in the future, and if they want us to look into more specifically about exactly what that cost might be, we could do that. That's what council would like to see.
Any other questions? Then we have a motion to receive this information. Moved by Wedge, second by Becker, so council township clerk of Providence, report CL 29/2026, bylaw enforcement activity report, second part of 2026 information. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's great. Beechville Museum Barn number 1 project, Julie, please.
So this report is follow up to the previous update council received regarding the barn project at the Beechville District Museum. I think that was around April of this year. The tender was sent out end of June, early July, until end of July, the township received 2 bids. The lowest bid was approximately 293,000 plus HST compared to the previous project estimate, which was approximately 168,000 plus HST. As you know, that there's a 10% contingency included in the 293. Given the significant increase and accordance with township's procurement policy, we did want to bring this matter back to council for further consideration. The museum board has reviewed the tender results and is recommending at this time that the project be paused. With the intention of considering future procurement potentially with revised scope in the future. It was noted that we do have some time to do that, as the current ISIP funding deadline is March 31st, 2028. During this time, staff is proposing to look more closely at the broader funding implications for the ISIP funding, seek clarification on what happens if the project changes in the future, or if the project does not maybe proceed to full completion as was originally proposed due to cost being higher. Right now, the recommendation from staff is not to abandon the project, but to pause to better understand the financial implications and bring back some further options for council to consider. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have.
So questions from council? Council Perry.
I don't think I really have a question. I think I really have a comment. I've been disturbed by this project right from the beginning. And the cost of it. And I'm gonna say once again that should we end up spending 300,000 or 600,000 down the road, obviously they may come back with another proposal from the museum. That's a lot of money to spend just to capture a small grant. That's what we call it.
Other comments, questions? the direction here from staff is defer to do some more exploring and other options, so. Councillor Gillis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As being on it's a committee, a lot of money that would have been used on those projects. So this is the amount that we have left to put towards this project. We are, as a group, very disappointed that the codes come in that much higher over anticipated cost. We feel as though we did the best we could by having an engineer look at this, have everything spec'd out and scoped out, so everything would be appropriate, and we came forward with the costs that were recommended by them. So to see this number come back this high was a little frightening towards us. That doesn't mean the other aspect that we could take is obviously separating different parts of the project, whether it be the flooring, the walls, the HVAC system. And have it done that way. Whether that would save us money could be determined, but that might entice smaller local as a storage space and a display space for part of the museum. For those of you that have been there or whatever, the basement of the museum is full of artifacts, and upstairs and the displays are full of artifacts. And as the report you've seen this morning, the continuation of people bringing stuff in or wanting stuff displayed or wanting memorabilia or historic things kept at a place that they can be preserved and seen appropriately to the public seems to keep coming in. And we don't have that space for it, let alone the items that are already in the barn that maybe, depending on your view of this, were being seen or kept at the most appropriate temperature controls or size, and able to maintain the museum for projects and displays moving forward, and add more abilities for the museum for other things that we're able to do on grounds.
But to answer your question, I think that barn was built in 1990.
Yes.
So it's not a historic building, it's I would describe it as a pole shed with a cement floor. Asphalt floor. So it was built, like, in fairness, it was built relatively cheap, because that's what the museum and the township could afford at the time. Fair enough. But if, it really looks more like a drive shed than anything, like a 40 by 50 or 40 by 60. And steel clad over, post and beam sort of, or post, construction. So it's, how do you bring that building, and this is, gets the question, how do you bring that building up to today's climate control standards? Or in fact, should we be building a new building or some other storage system for artifacts? Or do you simply say, sorry, that's all the artifacts we got, and not collecting? So I think there's a number of issues, and I guess I have a couple of questions on this one. The first one is, I'm surprised that we got an estimate of approximately 170,000. The low bid was 300,000 or close to it. I would have thought they might have been able to guess a little closer than that, or somebody's, let's put in a number and see where it goes, sort of thing. And to Councillor Pickett's comment about there's $27,000 left in this grant. $300,000 to get a $27,000 grant. Great economics in my mind. The question, but it's also, that's not the question. The question is, do you need a facility? And how do you provide the service that that facility is going to offer? Is there another option? And to your point, I'm asking myself, so what would a 40 by 40 new building cost that would do the same thing, or just make that number up there? Could you do a climate control building for 300,000 and have an additional so many square feet of new space? Don't know where you put it, not my worry, I'm not on the museum board, sure. But I do think, in my mind, to staff and to museum board, I think we probably need to look at all the options here, because this one's a little bit unpalatable. As much as I like museums and we don't mind investing in them, so. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Booker.
Well, I'm just looking at those quotes, I'm almost thinking, from the building report. I think the problem is everybody's so full, their workload, that we'll bid the pie. If we get it, fine, then we can make some money at it, but we're not gonna try to be competitive because I don't need to work.
Councilor.
I've been involved in a project with the low bidder in this report. And it was a time of transition for them. One of their lead quoters was not able to work on the project as he normally would have. But there were significant cost overruns with this contractor at the time as well. And so just because that's the number that's there doesn't necessarily mean it's the number you're gonna finish at.
Any comments from staff? This, your report is for the third, or at quarter. Okay, that's a direction of staff suggesting. Looking at council, you decide what we're doing. Council, you.
I would move the recommendations as in the report.
The seconders, seconded by Wade. Result, the council received report CAO 39/2026, Beachville Museum Barn One project. Tender results and next steps of information for the council direct staff to defer the Beachville Museum Barn One project. For back the options for proceeding with the project, including the planning or future procurement for council's consideration. Any discussion? Councilor Pickard.
Question is, whether we would hold this budgeted amount available for future years.
And the answer is direction of council. So what's the budget amount we have there for?
Coming out of the rec reserve was 66,000.
66. Okay. Not part of the motion, but that's a potential future motion, so. Any other questions, Councilor?
As you commented earlier, Mr. Mayor, all options need to be on the table here. Just seems to me in the commentary in the report and from board members that we could be looking at this same kind of a situation again in 10 years' time when, you know, if the donations keep coming in, just keep stuffing more stuff into it. So again, you know, this is not a very large building that we're talking about in the first place to dump another 300 grand into. Maybe it's time to dismantle that and look at something on a bigger scale that's purpose built with the climate controls already put into it rather than retrofitting a smaller structure.
So, I would agree, all options on the table and with a long-term vision, for sure. What that means, I don't know. Any further discussion? All those in favor confirmed? Opposed? That's carried. Next is the net surplus deficit, and that's your growth. Anything you want to report?
Yeah, this report is for council for information as well as seeking approval for the transfers to and from reserves for the overall surplus resulting in the 2025 year. It was staff's intention to transfer as much of this surplus to the working capital reserve as possible in anticipation of potential construction expenses in the near future. All departmental deficits are proposed to be transferred from their respective department reserves. However, those departments with significant surpluses, specifically roads and fire, are being proposed to be transferred into their specific department reserves. Just taking into consideration that both these departments have significant planned capital projects in the coming years. Other than that, if you have any questions about specifics in the report.
So, any questions or suggestions, Councilor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not necessarily a question on this report per se, but it was one question that kind of struck me in the building report earlier on in this meeting. Significant improvement in income on that department for this year, is that designated back toward that department, or can that be used for other sources?
It's up to council where their surplus goes, but that is usually the recommendation of staff to go back to their own reserves.
Clarification, I'm building permit fund.
Oh, yeah, that's a big issue.
Stay
Yes.
in the, so it's your question, I think, was we collected this much from building permits. My understanding was it has to stay in the building department. And next year, if we don't have enough, then you can suck money out of the reserve, but it's different than taxation reserves, which, and this question is about taxation reserve, but to your question, that we got 150,000 at the end of the year that you didn't budget for, you can't spend that on grass cutting. No, that needs to go into the building reserve.
So if we have another year next year like we do this year, then Daniel gets a new pickup truck, or?
Maybe you can. Probably not laptop, if I were born with it. Any further comments or suggestions on staff recommendation around where to allocate or where to transfer the surplus? That's really the question. This is, if you don't like, you can transfer these surpluses basically any way you want. This is staff's recommendation. So these are tax surpluses, not building. Go ahead, Councilor.
I'm fully prepared to go with staff recommendations here. I mean, they're all big expense items for the most part that are ongoing. Obviously, we're gonna need a good bunch in working capital, but some of these other projects are also gonna need extensive funding, so.
So it's a motion to approve. Okay, you have a second there? Second by Buchner. So council received report PR 12/2026/2025 net surplus deficit allocation to be transferred in 2026 with information. And that council, and further, the council approves the transfer of 2025 surplus funds totally $88,035 to the following reserves in 2026. And further, council approves the transfer of $107,296 from the following reserves in 2026 to cover the following deficits as listed, to record the following net 2025 surplus in 2026 of $617,739. Any discussion? Councilor Gillis.
Just comment on Councilor Foster's point about fire station wages just before we talk about that. Did you see in the previous fund report with multiple hires in a year, and all there was at least 5 in each of the stations, so when you're 5 or 3 or 4 short, that adds up significantly over 100 and some odd calls over the year. So that's probably why that surplus is bigger than what it normally has been.
Okay. Councilor Yagna.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So when you look at the net surplus over over the year, that essentially amounts to a 10% surplus over expected budget. And begs the question, do we need to be looking at our tax levy a little bit better at budget time each year? Not that we can't find places to spend it, but so can our residents.
Okay, so that in my mind comes into the discussion part where it says, where did this money actually come from? Where did the surpluses accumulate from? And to a certain extent, I would suggest that we might want to drill down a little bit more into that. We'll sort of say, why did we have a surplus of X number of dollars? And I think there's a certain amount of that in here, but it's is it because we didn't pay the road that we have 400,000 left over, or is it because thinking in over budget? I don't know.
I would say in general, it's revenues that are up. We don't, I guess we generally don't increase our revenues as much in budget. Maybe we should. It's a little more conservative though, depending on the law.
So revenue as in what is an anticipated tax collection going to be with new properties coming on or changes in values with stuff? Councilor.
Well, I just wanted to support that comment because that was very obvious when we reviewed the financial statements. that we've underestimated our revenues. And that is in fact where the surplus comes from. And we have a history of doing that every year. Just the way we do it, I guess. We budget for the worst case scenario.
So, Councillor, or sorry, Councillor,
And I would support that approach as well. I mean, plan for the worst, hope for the best, right? But at the same time, we'll have to be cognizant of this, of the taxpayers as well.
so. I would agree with that. To me, that's the conservative approach. I always, consider my expenses, how I, in my income, I always said it's conservative on my income, liberal on my expenses. No political, thing, expected here, but, and then at the end, if I have a surplus, that's great, because I have the surplus to either go to do the things I didn't get done. And in this case, as far as I'm concerned, this $600,000 left over is, in my mind, or potentially could be part of, asset management. That we do need funding for, that we're not flush in the asset management department, so. Some areas were better than others, but it's not like we don't have our obligations. I honestly don't think we need to go out and find places that spend this money. Like, I think if we fully satisfied our obligations in asset management, we're nowhere close. Another 3 or 4 years, I guess, would help. So, anyways, any other comments? Oh, Chief had his hand up. He wanted to say.
Well, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the council's question regarding the fire stations. The other thing too was there was a $26,000 surplus because of the shared training officers agreement from there. So to Brooke's story, Brooke's team did a great job in the revenue collection side of ours. So it's a revenue and gapping story. It's really the variance.
Any other questions on this? You see the recommendation, you've heard the motion, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? No, that's carried. We're down to. Who seconded? Maybe I didn't get a seconder. I think, who moved that?
I did.
Yeah, I thought so. Councillor Pickard. Okay, thank you. Consent agenda? Pardon?
Yeah.
I think that was a new business, we're putting it in discussion items, okay. Speeding,
Yeah,
Brownsville, I got it down as something else, so go ahead.
yeah, it's just that, a concern citizen brought up to me that, speeding in Brownsville, through and up to the Four Corners is getting to be quite a problem. And he was wondering why we can't have speed sign, the automated speed signs in Browns, at the outskirts of Brownsville all ways. But he said it's also a problem going out, that, I don't think, everybody seems to think that they gotta get up to 120 mile an hour before they hit the outskirt limits. And, I don't know what we can do, it's a county, problem. And, but they said, why can't we have the automated speed signs as well? I know we've been harping about this for quite a while. And it seems to be getting worse. There's a lot more transports and stuff like that, that they're nowhere near the speed limit when they're going through Brownsville. So I don't know if you could pass that on to county council. Whether, and I know we had one of our mobile speed mixers were pulling up to the Four Corners, and they saw the transport coming up behind him, coming from the north. And he was stopped at the stop sign, and the transport was halfway up his beside him before he hit the brakes. They're just not paying attention. They're sleeping at the switch or whatever, but it's becoming quite a problem.
So, first of all, as you say, this is a county issue, so fair enough. I'm wondering now, I've raised speeding virtually everywhere. And I'm wondering, I need to notify the OPP all the time. But also, I wonder if it would come better as a motion from council to ask for speed signs on, County Road 10 and,
Okay,
11. 20, is 20, 20 and 10,
yeah.
No, the key is a formal motion, and then you have to actually deal with it.
Well, I would make that motion forward.
Okay, so, the order be sent, asked from county, moved by Booker, seconded by Gillis. And asked county to, respond to it, so, okay. Any discussion on that? Council Foster?
I think those sign, like when I see, you're talking about the ones that flash.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm just curious, like, what's the report? I'm guessing they work quite well, but I'm just curious if there's been any kind of formal research to suggest how well they work, or do they serve the purpose? I'm just.
I can't, quote any, I know that, they've done it and then done a follow-up. I think it was in Virtual, where they showed like a 10% reduction in speed or something. Now, if you're doing, 80 and you drop down to 70, I'm not sure in the 60 that's such a huge success. But, the council was commenting a moment ago, though, the people aren't paying attention there. They're distracted by it rather than, so.
I just wondered if surveys of residents have been done post,
Ask,
to see, there's no point in putting them up there. Should look at other alternatives if they're not doing what they can do, but if there's some, they work well.
The challenge in Brunswick, particularly coming from the south, is such a long ways. From the kind of the south, look in the village, it's the same part of the beach, it's such a long ways. And, the people kind of get tired and gradually speed up, even if it's slowing down to 60. But then you back up to the other areas, back up 70, 75 there. So.
Yeah, I think those speed signs are kind of the equivalent of the lock on the front door of your house. It just keeps the honest people honest. If you're paying attention, or then sometimes lapse, you see a sign flash, oh, hit the brakes. But if you have no regard for speed, you're not gonna pay any attention to it anyway, and I see those go past my house constantly.
Any further discussion on this? Letters to the county? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried, and we'll be sure to repeat the crop. Raise the concern again. Well. Okay, now I think we're at, 1 to 49, consent agendas. We have a motion. Or you want to go through each one individually, so, Councilor Yetman.
I've moved to note and file, would like to pull a couple out for discussion as well.
So which ones do you want to pull out?
Well, 25 and 32 address the same issue, and I just wonder if the rest of the council would be willing to support those. And it goes to the discussion that we just had on speeding in Brownsville. Then there's one further that I'd like to discuss just a wee bit.
Okay, so which is the further one?
Number 27, the Oxford County Library annual report. I'd be interested to know where some of those numbers come from.
Okay, so let's start with motion to note and file 1 to 24, 26, 33 to 49. Oh, sorry, 26, 28 to 31, 33 to 49. Any of those you want taken out, Councilor Wade, will you seconding that?
No, I have a few I'd like to,
Oh, go ahead then.
10, 24, and 39, property tax reassessment cycle.
Okay.
Comment, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I didn't pull those out because we've already addressed that before. We've sent letters of support in similar motions to previous meetings.
I wondered if we had, I think it's an important one.
Yeah,
We're falling behind and we're just getting farther and farther behind. So I think we need to. We've dealt with it before, we'll just ignore this one then today. That's fine.
So in 2016, when the province froze assessments, my recollection, if somebody else will remember better maybe, was the province that said they wanted to re-examine the property tax system. And is it the most effective or efficient way of ever collecting taxes? And. But they said, for after 10 years, I would hope that your reexamination is done. And, it isn't. And there's been no proposal to, stay with what we've got. Which is the reason they froze it, they said, no, we're gonna freeze it here, that was the given reason. We're gonna freeze it here, and we're gonna study the system. Property tax system. And quite frankly, I don't think property tax should be paying for all the healthcare costs, such as public health or, a lot of other things actually, that we end up paying for. This is the sort of the more corporate tax, but anyway. And I guess that's the reason why it bothers me that after 10 years, I should have decided, is there a better system? If it isn't, let's proceed with what we've got. Like I'm willing to live with that. I don't agree with it, but I'm willing to live with it. And that's the part that bothers me more than just re-implementing the current value assessment. Okay, I can live with it, but the reason we stopped it was so you could do the study. And nobody has, that I know of, has ever heard the results of the study. And like, is there a better system? Are you playing with great results? Oh, okay, sorry. So, I fully agree, I think they should re-implement it or bring out the results of the study and say, this is how we're gonna pay for it. I suspect what they found was that it was gonna cost the province a whole lot more money. If in fact you took stuff off the property tax, put it on some other tax system. But anyways. An aside, sorry, but Councilor, you have enough.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that in the 10 years that it's been frozen, we've fallen behind 25% just due to inflation.
Well, the property values have. Everybody is still being scored on the same basis, so. And so, yeah, it's a lower number, but the actual tax collected is the assessment times the mill rate. And that, so if you up one, you lower the other. We didn't collect any money that we didn't need. So I'm less concerned about that, other than the imbalance between sort of commercial, industrial and agriculture. As compared to residential. But anyways, I better not wander too far down that one, Chris. We've done some work on that. Back to the original motion. Excluding 25, 27, and 32 was. Then go ahead.
So now going forward with the 2024, maybe those.
I believe we've responded in the past to requests from other municipalities on that, so we basically have dealt with this.
Okay. So, the motion is to exclude those three, 25, 27, 20, 32. All those in favor of noting and filing? Okay, 25 and 32. You want a letter of support moved by Yetman, seconded by Gillis, letter of support.
They deal with the same items, so I don't know if we have to support both or if we just do one.
So.
Go ahead.
So usually if there's two items that support each other, we create one and send it to both municipalities, so we should. So, I write both with this, it's just as easy.
Okay. Good. Any discussion on that? All those in favor of those two? Okay, opposed? Carried. And the other one is 27, the library report. Go ahead, Councilor.
Well, it's just, I find the numbers that they project here at $21 million worth of social return on investment. Read somewhere else a factor of like $3.08 per dollar invested or thereabouts. I'm just curious how they come by those numbers.
I think it's based on something very cool, valuing very libraries cool that. I don't put a whole lot of value in those numbers myself, but does help the library look like it's our value. I think it's more than what's the intrinsic value or something. What's the value to it? And if it isn't, then support it. I think this doesn't. I kind of have to agree with him. and, more than that. I think it's one of those things where I'm not sure that it actually sells me on anything. Like, I don't feel more on the vehicle to invest in it or less. That's one way of measuring it. If somebody else had done it, they would have found it for games. Yeah, no library board need to, but I will bring that up in the library board, because like you say, I don't think it's very helpful. Unless you can actually show what those values were in an Oxford context. We don't file that one as well. Okay, if you want to include 27 in the first group. That's all right with you, mover and seconder will be included, and I'll bring it up to library board. Okay. That finishes, that, I think we're down to accounts payable. We have a motion here for accounts payable, moved by Lochner, seconded by Rickard. Result of the following accounts being approved for payment. And my computer is closed up on, so, the following accounts being approved for payment, accounts payable for July cost of August 8th, 2026. $1,348,315.45, payroll number 15,74,843.55, payroll number 16, $59,248.25, payroll number 7, council $70,407.77, and payroll number 7 for fire, $27,315.66 for a grand total of $1,517,130.68 in discussion. Councilor, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last item on vendor payments over 25,000. Adam, excavating underwater material. I assume that's at the pit.
Correct. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, opposed, that's carried. Waiting for the back order. All right. Now. Now down to, oh, we're breaking for lunch, so, okay, apparently we're breaking for lunch, so. Okay, 45 minutes, one. Okay, we'll be back at 1.